The problem isn't so much the late night. I didn't have that midday nap that I normally have.
Mm-hmm.
I normally take a midday nap.
So without a midday nap, you did not have sleep in the evening?
No, I that midday nap revives me.
Ah.
Yes.
What would they expect it to be the other way around?
No.
That because you didn't have a midday nap, then you're knackered by the end of the day. You sleep earlier, actually.
No. I have to break that sleep pattern.
Mm.
I have that nap. It's an hour at the most, 45 minutes, and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But if I miss it, it's really what my system has. I've accustomed my system to. It's not as though it's some magical remedy for God knows what else. It isn't. It's just my body resonates. Actually, it was upon the advice of someone who understands this issue of waking up at these insane hours we wake up. Yes.
So it's better to have a nap.
Yes, just take a break, even if it's just half an hour to an hour. Yes.
Okay. Do you do that?
Take a nap during the day? It depends.
You know, it had to depend.
On the
Even
day.
you, when you asked that question, you thought it wasn't going to depend.
You know,
Depends on who you ask.
Hey, what time? It depends.
I don't plan to take a nap. It's not like you're putting. It's not like It's not like when kids, you're gonna put them down for a nap at some point. No.
See, I told you, it's depending now.
If environment is conducive for a nap, then why not? Close the eyes and let's go.
Okay, environment is conducive for a nap.
That's our. A number of things to talk about today. Welcome to the show. So there's a fresh plot to kick Sonko out. There's a fresh attempt at building a new war chest to cushion Kenyans against the effects of coronavirus. There is, a lot that's happening. The BBI conversation is out there. Now the signature drive has gone to the counties. Attempts to, sign up at least 4 million Kenyans who are agreeable to the proposal to amend some sections of the Constitution. So that will also be tracking. We also know that COVID-19 is in the country, and the Ministry of Health does this every day. They release a statement giving the update of the number of cases, the number of recoveries, the number of hospitalizations and all for COVID-19. Let's start with that.
All right, let's look at COVID-19 around the world. First of all, we're looking at now 61 million cases, 61,302,037. That is what the tally looks like now. The United States increased by about 100,000 cases yesterday. And there have been calls, again, just like what we're talking about now, calls for everybody to kind of stay home. That didn't really work. Thanksgiving was had across the country, and some still celebrating at this point. 108,000 new cases. There are certain states who did send out their own kind of warnings in terms of what they were going to do for Thanksgiving, from Idaho to Louisiana, Massachusetts, Minnesota, across board, saying that this is what we're going to do, this is what we're asking people to make sure that they're home by a certain time. However, quite a number of people still traveled, and like we said, you're likely to see an increase in these cases in the number in another 10 days or so. It's just what they've said is going to happen based on the behavior that they've witnessed and what they'll see today, even on this Black Friday. So 13,248,676 cases now in the United States. And really increasing. If we look at the numbers, the next country after the United States is India, with triple its population, almost quadruple its population, with 9 million cases in India. And yeah, the cases continue to rise. Some of the highest cases that we've seen coming out of Mexico, 8,107 reported in the last 24 hours. And we see 645 deaths. So the numbers continue to rise in countries like Mexico, Colombia, Argentina. Now all of them having crossed the 1 million case mark. Take a look at what's going on in Kenya right now. Still seeing increased cases. Looking at the numbers that were then received yesterday. Now Kenya stands at 80,102 cases, 20,000 short of 100,000. 780 new cases in the country yesterday, or rather 780 reported cases in the country yesterday, with 10 new deaths reported. We've also seen that in recent days, the Interfaith Council has now talked about how they want worship to be, and to really stress on stringent measurements to be kept. And also looking at tightened measures when it comes to public meetings. And there's a call for that we've seen in the last couple of hours. That is at least since yesterday. Still continue to see the problems that we've been seeing recently. Shortage of oxygen here and there, asking as patients now have to find themselves in hospital. Corona vaccine safety process reassures experts that it's going to be safe and that they're going to be able to distribute this around the world. The emergency approvals are around the corner, and they're trying to ship millions of doses around the world now, are at least preparing to do that in the coming months to make sure countries around the world have access to these.
You know what is of interest when you talk about COVID? We haven't used the language of wave with regards to the surge that we've seen in positivity cases in the country. But yet it appears, if you look at the manner...
In which country? In Kenya?
Yes.
When you talked about the second wave?
Yes. We mentioned the second wave, but you see, with waves, they rise, they ebb, and then they dip. But in our case, remember, the indicators have been that the health facilities have been overwhelmed, or at least they have been taxed, stretched. There'll be an easing of it. After that, after Christmas, because with the Christmas season, it doesn't matter what we say, we will not behave any differently from the Americans with their Thanksgiving. When we come to January, we'll be facing the same issues that we're facing now, if not worse, because people will travel.
So there'll be increased travel, there'll be more interaction over the Christmas season.
They will be. They will be. They will be.
And then now, so you're saying that come mid-January into February, they will have another spike.
Yes, and why I'm saying this is, I'm saying this vis-a-vis the government's plans to reopen schools. Because even if schools are not open, there will be that surge. Remember, right now, we have a surge and schools are not open. And I'm thinking, imagine if you have a surge that is higher than what we have now and schools are open. What are we going to be facing? That's what I'm saying. But on a happier note, the rest of the world is talking about vaccination, trying this. The regulators are looking at what has been produced and questioning it. And of course, the manufacturers, the pharmaceutical companies are saying, they've been keeping the regulators abreast of everything they're doing. China is vaccinating and has been for quite some time.
Yep. But the story of China will not be told by the rest of the world for obvious reasons.
By Western media. Yes.
China's vaccination drive started at some time. There were queues. There were reports of queues outside health facilities, people going to get the vaccination.
Yeah.
And any sort of reaction from that so far?
Well, apart from the silence that it has been treated with, I think part of the success story has to do with their vaccination. And if it's a question of testing, there are those who will argue that it was unethical. They tested among the armed forces, among civil servants, but they tested.
Yep.
And they tested really widely. Okay. So what is actually being seen is that their vaccination program is effective. But there is a province or a district or a state in Australia called Victoria. 28 days, not a single infection, not a single death. Just to mention that there are parts of the world where they've managed to control the spread of the virus completely.
So what is Victoria doing? Is it restricting movement in and out of Victoria?
Victoria, remember the case that we heard of in New Zealand where 2 people tested and they just shut it down? Similar procedures. They, at the very beginning, they did not joke with the pandemic. They used the Wuhan style of dealing with things. They shut it down, no going out, no coming into that state. So they know exactly what they're dealing with.
But movement within the state was okay?
It was allowed, but for only specific and emergency needs. But more so in the areas where they noticed, because it wasn't as though the infection was throughout the state. It was in the area it was. There, you stayed indoors. But the Australian government also ensured that their people were well looked after. So you would go out for emergencies, you would go out to shop, and people stayed indoors. They complied.
What is being looked after?
Meaning,
what did it entail?
There was a social benefit in terms of Australian dollars that would be given to the citizens. So you were able to look after yourself. You're able to buy things. You're able to stay indoors, knowing very well that you will be fed. No emergencies. Yes. The stories of hospitals being overwhelmed, you don't hear coming out of Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there travel restrictions into Australia?
No, it's specific parts of Australia.
But
When
the rest of Australia, basically, if the rest of the world, you want to go to travel
You
into
can
Australia,
travel- you can travel to
into
Australia. You can
So
travel
how
to
are they doing in terms of screening the people who are getting into the country?
I think the processes that many countries are using are similar in this sense. There are guidelines that WHO, as we know, have set. Now, many countries choose pockets of what they think will be suitable for them and use. Australia, I think the success has to do with they use the full hog, almost the full range of it. Anything that would guarantee that the infection would not spread. And once they had put a halt to it, to actually get it to stay there. Yes.
I see. I see. Lessons to learn, lessons to pick from other parts of the world, and also lessons that other parts of the world can pick from these parts of the world. Coming up to 6:15, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Happy Friday, everybody. Live streaming on Spice FM, KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and spicefm.co.ke. Would like you to check in and tell us where you are listening in or watching us from this morning. And then we'll also acknowledge you. Good morning. Let's take a look at the weather.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
Okay, looking at it this morning, we're looking at light rain in Nairobi at some parts. 17 degrees at the moment, highs of 26 and lows of 17. Nakuru is partly cloudy at 15, highs of 23 and lows of 15. Light rain in Nyeri at 15, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret at 14, highs of 24 and lows of 12. Kisumu experiencing rain showers this morning at 20. We'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's partly cloudy in Kakamega at 16, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Light rain occurring in Mombasa, 25 degrees at the moment, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Malindi is partly cloudy at 17, highs of 27 and lows of 16. Light rain in Kampala at 19 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 18. It's also raining in Dar es Salaam at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Johannesburg is clear at 17, highs of 26 and lows of 14. Lagos experiencing rain showers this morning at 27 with highs of 31 and lows of 25. It's mostly clear in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Beijing is sunny at 4 degrees today. It's getting quite cold. Highs of only 5 and going down to lows of -4. 5 degrees in Paris, highs of 10 and lows of 5. It's 2 in London, highs of 8 and lows of 2 today. And finally in New York, still Thursday night, but it's clear at 13. We'll go to highs of 17 today and lows of 11. Cool down considerably later.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Kenya's biggest conversation, wherever you are. Good morning to you. Who's online?
All right. Solowera says, hey, you guys, good and tuned in. Robin Boggers tuned in from Mombasa. And Lawrence tuned in as usual this morning. Titus Mbeta says, good morning. He's tuned in from Kisii. And Mutuku tuned in from Machakos. Sir Haran Wafula says, good morning. Kisumu is tuned in today. And John is also tuned in from Malindi. Says, good morning to everybody today. Happy Friday, guys.
Happy Friday to everybody, and thank you very much for tuning in. C.T. Muga, what is today's proverb?
The sun does not forget a village because it is small.
The sun does not forget a village because it is small.
No.
Okay. Okay. Sun is democratic,
As is the rain.
as is the rain.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. You'll tell us why you chose this particular proverb for today.
Yes, I will.
Yeah. So let's look at the headlines. Headlines in Z papers this morning.
Wow. Okay. So Uhuru apparently has a 930 billion shilling pandemic war chest. The government is raising 925.5 billion shillings to cushion Kenyans against the effects of coronavirus. The money will be invested in sectors that create jobs and stir growth to reboot the economy, according to a new Treasury report. Okay, so there's some money and it's going to help. Let's see where this money is going to come from. The government will raise funds through new taxes, donors, and debt. Are you surprised? To fund key sectors that will drive business growth and create jobs.
What is it?
Wait
CJ?
now, let me read the stories.
Taxes will improve and create new jobs.
Yes,
Yeah.
and also-
Taxes.
yes, and donor funding and yeah.
You raise tax, you finance some sectors of the economy. Those sectors of the economy become,
This horse has
It's
been
for
put.
growth.
This horse has been put before the cart. But go on, maybe it's a reporting issue.
Oh, let's see. So President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration has put together 929.5 billion shillings. In its post-COVID economic recovery strategy 2020-2022 report, the Treasury said the money would be used to help reboot the economy by investing in areas that would enable businesses to thrive and create jobs. The amount is separate to the 2.7 trillion shilling budget set for the current financial year. The new funds will direct money towards social protection, particularly to vulnerable groups like orphans and the elderly, healthcare and transport. Education will play a big part in the 2-year stimulus plan, with funds going towards free primary and day secondary school, hiring of more teachers, the purchase of more desks, operating ICT and internet connectivity in all 5,000 universities, and boosting loans for higher education. So we're looking at how this money is going to be spent. Let's just look at this round graph here. 9.3 billion is going to go towards external and domestic trade. 11.1 billion will go through MSMEs. 11.3 will go towards inequality, social cohesion and social protection. 17 billion financial services and labor. 18.1 billion will go towards tourism. 21.4 billion towards security. And this is the 2-year stimulus plan, right? Manufacturing will get 23.5 billion. 29.5 billion will go towards the environment and a disaster risk management. Agriculture, food and nutrition security will get 30.2 billion. ICT and digital infrastructure will get 30.9 billion. Healthcare will get 43 billion. While water supply 95, transport and storage will get 101 billion. And we're looking at social safety net program will get 103.8 billion, one of the highest. And education, the absolute highest, will get 383.6 billion shillings. This is what the plan will be, and this is where the money that is being collected will go towards.
it's important to note that this is in addition to what has been budgeted for.
Yes, this is in addition
This
to
year
the
and
2.7
next
trillion. Yes.
Okay. We'll look at it in greater detail. The cash will come from, among other sources, CT. 530 billion shillings from rollback taxes, tax exemptions. All those 2 tax exemptions that we've enjoyed the last couple of months. VAT from 16 to 14%, income tax from 30 to 25%, and no payee for a cadre of people who earn 24,000 shillings and below. That will go. Now you'll start paying the tax. So the government will be able to raise 530 billion shillings. That will go now into this kitty. 73 billion shillings will come from deferring interest payments on pensions. Okay. And then we are now talking about looking at donor partners, World Bank, IMF, the COVID-19 Recovery Fund and the Green Climate Fund, going into these ones and asking for some cash here and there. And then the private sector, looking at the diaspora remittances and seeing, hey, there's 500 billion that comes through the diaspora, put a basket to take that. We have this new elevated highway that's coming from JKIA to ABC Place in Westlands, road toll fees, increased investment in affordable housing and infrastructure.
How much of this money do we actually have?
No, we don't have it. We
so,
don't have it.
no,
We're
it's a plan.
sourcing it. We don't have it
It's a
yet.
plan, it's a plan.
Kenya doesn't have the money yet. I mean, there's a
it's a
plan
plan.
to get it.
It's a-
Donors,
it's 2 years.
increased tax. It's over 2 years. So within 2 years,
So
this
it's
money will have
joining
been
the queue
collected.
of the many plans we have.
It's so what will happen is, for example, right now you see we are raising taxes that's going to finance the current 1.2 trillion shillings, 3 trillion shillings budget. Then once we roll back on the tax exemptions, that money goes into this special kitty. Okay, the money that we get from the World Bank, specifically applied for this special kitty, goes into that kitty. So that's a plan. It's meant to help you grow.
Well, let it join the queue. There are many other plans we've had, sound good. And to date, not many of those plans seem to have worked out the way they were intended. So we had affordable housing. The plan is still there. It's being worked on.
It's rolling out smoothly. isn't it?
Food security. That, I believe, is also still being worked on.
Manufacturing is being revived.
Manufacturing. You see, let's start with everything that we're talking about, shall we? If we are talking about, say, food security, for instance, all right? There's a headline in the Star, page 11, New Komboka Rice to double yield and boost food security.
Kwamboka.
No. Komboka.
Komboka.
Then boka.
Okay.
This is a new strain, a new breed, a new type, a new variety of rice that has been launched by the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization, KALRO, by Director General Dr. Eliud Kirega, I think is the way it's pronounced. This particular variety seeks to increase yield from 6.5 to 7 tons per hectare, which is significantly higher than the yields of the basmati rice, which is 2.5 to 3 tons per hectare. And now the beauty of this particular variety is that it requires less water. Yes. It is suitable for both irrigated and rain-fed lowland ecologies. Now, this is a good story for food security. Okay? So you can plant it the way you plant maize, or the way you plant other.
Just wait for the rain.
Or you can water it, but you don't. And you don't
Irrigation
need
areas. It doesn't need the kind of water that the
Yes,
other
it doesn't need the water.
varieties
Yes,
need.
exactly, it doesn't.
Nice.
Now this is good news. And you know sometimes I read these things and I think to myself, we should, if only we reported more of these things. Because I'm sure there's a lot more happening.
Yeah, there are people who work and people like those ones at KALRO. That's what they do, all right, on a daily basis. So they put up, you may find that this research took very many years. By the time they're actually getting to a point there, they're saying, we are announcing it. It took many years of development, many years of research, many years of testing and trials in the various KALRO farms around the country. Now the question will come in how we roll it out. Because now the next step is now the Ministry of Agriculture seeing, so how do we support our farmers? How do we get this out there? How do we get the variety out? How do we get seed production of this? As we're still talking about food production then, can I just read this one?
Please.
Worst locust invasion may hit Kenya in December. Many swarms are migrating into the country from the south of Somalia and southern Ethiopia, and then we could face our worst invasion. This emerged even as the Agriculture Ministry survey showed Samburu, Turkana, Laikipia, Isiolo, Baringo, and Elgeyo Marakwet were the hardest hit by the first round of invasion earlier this year. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, an update on Tuesday said that Cyclone Garti struck Somalia last week, and this will hasten the maturity of the swarms. The cyclone that formed in the Indian Ocean from Tuesday to Saturday caused rains along the coast of northern Somalia, the driest parts of the country. So the nature is conspiring to send locusts to us. Sends rain to the places where now they're hatching. They will grow. They'll have ready vegetation growing. They'll have enough strength. They'll fly down to us. By mid-December,
They'll be here.
they'll be here. Now, if we're talking about the worst hit, all those counties, Samburu, Turkana, Laikipia, Isiolo, Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet were hardest hit earlier. And now we're talking about now our food security and the plans by the government now then to cushion those farmers, to cushion the people who live there in terms of access to food. Food security is about access, it's about affordability. So that's it. Things to talk about anyway.
Yeah. Many things still happening.
Maybe Okay, just before we go into the break, Raila, I was not duped.
Okay.
The ODM leader had issued a statement to reiterate his position on the referendum bill amid claims that he was kept in the dark about changes on the IEBC, the police, and the judiciary. You see, the bill that was published is not like the bill that was presented earlier. So there are some changes. For example, how the IEBC is to be treated, police, and which commission then manages the police and the position of that. Is it an independent constitutional commission or not? The judiciary, the ombudsman, and all. He had previously said that no changes would be made to the draft bill, shutting the door to rivals pushing for consensus. So, according to Raila spokesman Dennis Onyango, we wish to clarify that Mr. Odinga was party to the changes and in agreement with the contents of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. He used yesterday's event, this is the Wednesday's event, to make the point that not all views, including his, were accepted into the bill, and it should not be a reason for actors to oppose the process. Now we are seeing the BBI rallies and what's going to happen next, and this is what also the nation is putting, the Standard is putting out there. It says it's game on. KANU BBI rallies. KANU chairman Gideon Moi launches a national campaign to drum up support for BBI reforms in Narok to pitch tent in Migori today. The ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi says he is happy with the changes in the draft bill and he pledges to campaign independently for Kenyans to pass it. He will not be joining the other reggae concerts. Lone voice, most of William Ruto's demands were not captured in the bill, but pushing ahead with calls for consensus. All eyes on his next move as rivals line up to back BBI. Prayers on a wing, religious leaders take a wait-and-see approach with calls for consensus to cool tension and avoid a divisive referendum. And 70 new constituencies created. Senators get more powers and slots for nomination. Parliament expanded to seal gender gap. So these are some of the things that are being discussed in the papers today. We will look at this expanded parliament and what then it means. Parliament plus the National Assembly plus the Senate. What does it mean when we have an expanded parliament? What does it mean when you have all these people in these positions, right? Does it have any change? This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room at 6:30. Time for us to see what's happening on the roads this lovely Friday morning. Something weird was happening as I was driving to work. A section from Museum Hill, heavy rain, wipers on full speed, all the way up to Parliament, and then you get to the Haile Selassie roundabout. Just after the Haile Selassie roundabout, not a single drop.
Yes.
Because I noticed now my wipers were making noise. No, they're just scratching on the windshield.
Nothing was happening.
Yeah, not a single drop.
It's an interesting phenomenon, that one, isn't it?
Yeah. Because it was just a sudden
Downpour.
heavy downpour and then suddenly nothing. All right, so let's see what is happening in other parts of the city and the country. Good morning.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
Traffic.
Okay, so let's look at how it's building up on Mombasa Road this morning. Outbound, looking a bit slow, but we're seeing normal situations this morning. It's not too terrible at the moment. Of course, we're not yet officially in traffic hour. However, we see that building up quite swiftly, and we'll probably get to a bumper-to-bumper situation in no time. It's moving very well on Thika Road, all the way from the Thika Road Mall towards Roysambo, and then to the bridge after Muthaiga near the tunnel. So it's looking pretty good there. Kiambu Road is already building up as we see it, and you want to do something urgent on Mombasa Road today, now is the time to have left by. If you haven't, you're going to probably get stuck. At the moment, the eastern and southern bypasses don't have any issues. You can get around without too much of a problem. But like we said, it is Friday, so we expect things to go a little bit crazy. Outbound, we're also seeing heightened levels of traffic then going off of Uhuru Highway out through to Westlands, and then in the Limuru direction. We'll take a look at that and see how that looks in a short while. So things have just started to kick up. Let us know if you get stuck anywhere, or if anything happens in your neck of the woods that we should know about. Do text us on 40127 or tweet us on Spice FM KE.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Situation Room this morning on Spice FM Online, looking at the headlines.
How 70 extra MPs will redefine politics. That's what it's being called now. The proposed creation of 70 more constituencies is set to tilt the dynamics of leadership in the National Assembly. Other than the expansion of the legislature, the MPs will be instrumental in the election of Prime Minister and members of crucial committees. The formation of the electoral areas will also see more money go to the counties, hosting them through the National Government Constituencies Development Fund. That the Constitution of Kenya Bill 2020 once entrenched in the Constitution. Each constituency gets more than 100 million in the CDF annually, apart from the other devolved funds. The amendment bill also recommends the establishment of Ward Development Fund. The larger Rift Valley, which is Deputy President William Ruto's stronghold, it's okay, and which already leads in number of constituencies in the country with 76, took the lion's share of the new constituencies after it bagged 33 more. Of course, his name could not be missing from this. President Uhuru Kenyatta's Mount Kenya base will have 11 new constituencies, Nairobi 12, while Coast, where ODM leader Raila Odinga enjoys support, got an additional 4. It is, however, the few new electoral areas in Raila's turf of Nyanza, Amani National Congress Musalia Mudavadi's Western 5, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka's Lower Eastern 4, and the former Northeastern 1 that has left tongues wagging.
Let's just say that everyone got the same number. Would tongues stop wagging?
It's possible.
No. Tongues will always wag.
Who's everyone here?
Let's say that every region, for every region that we've mentioned there, everybody got to say 4. Do you think there'd be peace? Say, okay. In the spirit.
Did the people ask for it?
Of equitable. Did we ask to have a flyover? Did we ask to have a road built from JKIA to Westlands? We didn't ask.
The answer I'm alluding to is that maybe people will still be indifferent. I mean, if I didn't ask for something and then you put it there and you say, okay, there are 4 more seats in this region.
I think with our politics, the people will not be indifferent. If it's a political decision, that's what I'm getting at. It doesn't really matter what you say. There will be pushback on it. There will be people who will read into it, look into it, and say, no, what you can see is the numbers have been added, but they will see something that you don't see. No, these numbers mean...
Okay, what I'm asking is, are you going to have the general population reacting to it, or are you going to have those that see the benefits to themselves or the loss to themselves leading the conversation? Because it doesn't matter. If politicians are the ones who are going to come out and speak, and no, they come and bring this conversation to you, and they say, sisi tumesema, tumenyanyaswa, tumeonewa, And the other people are just sitting there thinking, okay.
But that's what they always do. You see, this is something we don't pay them to do for us, but they do. They are the ones who raise issues. The Mwananchi is a spectator and usually gets involved when they think perhaps they need to get it. But by and large, we spectate. We listen, we look, we hear. For instance.
So ask your question again. I'm going to give you the answer then. If?
What day of the week is it?
Friday.
Okay, now let me get on to the real question.
Right.
You see, what I'm asking is there ever going to be a time when there isn't pushback on any such matter? And why I ask this question, the background to my question is, even if everybody got, say, an increase, every region, not everybody, of, say, a number, think of a number, 5, 4,
I think what you're trying to say, CT, is that there will be no situation where nobody would complain.
That's what
regardless
I'm
of what it is that is being put forth, there
Yes.
will always be a situation that would arise where somebody was not happy with something.
Yes, but
regardless of what it was.
Yes, but the question that then, the secondary question I would ask is, has there been logic behind this decision? And the answer is yes.
My answer to your question is yes, there will be people who will still continue complaining, and those are the people who are looking at what they stand to gain or lose with the new seats. Then the second barometer would be the number of the ordinary people in that region who give a damn about that decision. And I'll tell you that in some cases, many people in that region will not really care. That you're saying, okay, we got 4, we got 7, we got 6. There's a class of people who will see what it means to them, and there's the other class of people who will not see what it means to them.
There's a class of people whose bread and butter depends on speaking about such matters and raising issues and poking holes. So they will. After all, they are 9 to 5.
It's a 9 to 5. That's their job. And that's they stand to gain. If there's extra seats here, then they can see you've carved out a place where I can easily win. Okay. Headline in the Business Daily, which is also some headline of a story on page 14 of The Nation.
Well, the one that I'm going to choose, there are 3. Okay? There's one where KCB plans to buy Rwanda and Dar Bank for 4.3 billion. I'm not going to talk about that.
Good for them, KCB.
Yes, let them. Equity Bank doing the same thing. They're reaching out. DRC. SportPesa reveals secret revenues of 100. This one I should mention.
Yeah.
Because what betting firms are showing with their data is that on average, listen, hold it, wait for it, 408 million shillings daily on their platforms. That is what is exchanged daily.
408 million shillings, people betting. And this is not all, it's this one particular one company.
Yes, 408 million daily.
And then how much per year?
Revenues of 150 billion.
150 billion shillings revenues per year. Okay. So every day, an average of 400 million shillings would actually be transacted here. People betting 408 and 8 million on a daily basis. These are high figures. Why is this and how is this matter emerging now?
Well, you see, they've been under some scrutiny and they've been under some spotlight. Among their own, it's clear there has been some unease. Someone, and it's one of these proxy wars of someone wants to take over, wants to do what. But remember, there was the revelation that some directors had actually exported money abroad. And again, it was in the billions of Kenya shillings. And then there was the issue of SportPesa is a name, and that franchise is ownership. Who owns what should be used, who's allowed to use the name, who's allowed to use the franchise, etc., etc. But amidst all this, of course, regulator steps in, says, okay, folks, can we just tell us a little bit more about these matters that we hadn't asked you to tell us, but it's coming out because you clearly have wrangles from among yourselves. And so, SportPesa, it is reported, for the first time, disclosed its annual sales of 149 billion. For the first time. They revealed this, right? Now, in 2018, is when this 150 billion, 2018.
That was their revenue in 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Which means 2019 it increased. Okay.
Well, until they hit now the snags with the regulators and all that.
Yes. But it is clear, when you look at these figures, you can understand why the Minister for Interior got alarmed, because this represents a craze. It was not just a preoccupation, it was like the lifeblood for many people. If you saw the queues of people waiting in those betting places to simply go and place a bet and whatever. But then came a ruling that was turned aside by Parliament. There had been people wishing to publish a bill, it was actually the Ministry of Interior, to have all foreign companies in this country that want to be in this business to ensure that 50% of the ownership is actually local. That was thrown out. Parliament said, no, we're not passing this thing. It's not going to happen. Yes. So we can expect to see more drama in this particular arena as time moves along. But really what I wanted to talk about was not that. What I wanted to talk about was...
CT.
Yes. I mean, this one I just mentioned, by the way.
Okay.
Now, EPRA probes Kenya Power hidden token pricing. Remember the story we talked about the other day of complaints that were raised by people who use a prepaid platform for getting their energy? All right? The energy regulator decided they're going to investigate Kenya Power after it stopped providing prepaid consumers with a breakdown of the electricity bills, denying households an opportunity to interrogate their payment statements. Okay? EPRA said, that was yesterday, that it would seek reasons behind the shift in the bill statement amid concerns of possible breach of consumer rights. Yes. So, EPRA has entered into the fray. We will wait for the outcome.
Hey, let us see. At the same time, EPRA has published some regulations. You know, we've been talking about power. Now people are going solar. So there are regulations, draft regulations on solar photovoltaic systems. They have been published by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. And the goal of the regulation is to streamline the manufacture, importation, distribution, design, installation, testing, commissioning, maintenance, and repair of solar systems and components in Kenya. This is through, among others, licensing players in the solar value chain and enforcement of approved standards for the solar photovoltaic industry. So they are asking the public to give their views. They are hosting a seminar today, 11th of December, they'll be hosting a workshop to discuss this particular issue so that people can come in and give their views on this. You know, when they come up with such regulations, now they're going to say, all right, so what are the standards? First of all, is setting the standards. What is going to be allowed in the market? Then, from that, then they can license who sells the solar panels, who installs solar panels, who manages the solar panels. That's important because people are more and more going into solar. It's important for the regulator to basically just set that standard.
The news coming out is that there's an increase, but actual details of just how many people, the industrial users, the domestic users, those figures aren't really out in the public domain. But that is what I hear is a discussion that is quiet. People are unhappy with Kenya Power, and they're looking for alternatives.
People are looking for something else to do.
Yes, also because Kenya Power has been at this game for the longest time, and every time this thing arises, you know what the next news you're going to hear or read about? Kenya Power is posting losses.
But we've
there's
seen it already.
There's a rise in the bills, an increase in the power bill, and yet there's losses.
Puzzling, isn't it?
It is quite puzzling. Let's take a quick break. At 14 minutes to 7 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We're looking at the big headlines in the major newspapers this morning, and then we'll still look at more. Good morning.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
12 minutes to 7.
Mornings done right.
So the man who died in the city Matatu did not succumb to COVID. The man who died in Matatu along Mombasa Road on Tuesday was not killed by COVID-19, as it was initially feared. Tests on samples taken from the man who had been identified as Leonard Odhiambo at 57 years old turned negative for coronavirus. City Mortuary Deputy Funeral Superintendent Patrick Mbogwa, however, said a post-mortem had not been done to determine the cause of death. He was brought to the mortuary and the COVID-19 test came back negative, according to quotes. We suspect he died of blood pressure issues owing to the sudden manner of his death. However, we are still waiting for the post-mortem results, but we know that it was not COVID-19. Tuesday around 7:30 a.m., the Matatu had left the Ambassador bus stop in the city centre and was picking passengers along the way on its route to Embakasi. Before 8, Mr. Odhiambo boarded the Embasava Sacco 14-seater Matatu, popularly known in the South B area. He sat on a seat at the row behind the driver's cabin next to the passenger door, and the row had 3 seats, but owing to COVID-19 regulations, it only had 2 passengers. Slightly past the Panari Hotel at an area called Lab, the passengers seated next to Mr. Odhiambo wanted to alight. As usual, the passenger next to the door is expected to alight. Mr. Odhiambo did not move, and then after some time, he was pronounced dead and was removed from the vehicle. It caused some fear because of the COVID-19 situation in the country at the moment. But then now what we have heard is that he actually did not succumb to COVID-19.
Okay.
And in the same vein, rules on gatherings have been tightened again.
Bye.
A reduction in the number of people allowed to attend burials and weddings, as well as tighter restrictions in places of worship, are the latest checks on the spread of coronavirus. The total number of people attending burials has been limited to 100, and much fewer, 50, will attend weddings, in new measures announced yesterday by the Interfaith Council for COVID-19 response. The maximum number of persons attending funerals and weddings has been reviewed upwards from 100 to 200 in the last addressed in September by President Uhuru Kenyatta on the advice of the religious leaders. During burials, only 15 people will be allowed at the graveside. The burial will take place within an hour with no food served. For weddings, only the nuclear family will be served food. These measures are in addition to observing the stipulated health ministry guidelines. Yesterday, the council released the new COVID-19 guidelines for worshippers ahead of the second phased reopening today. For in-person worshipping, only those aged over 6 and less than 65 will be allowed for the services that will not last beyond 90 minutes. They will be required to wear their masks correctly, wash hands before service, and observe 1.5 meters social distancing. The space available will determine the number of congregants in a church, mosque, or any religious centers. And once worshipping is over, the other meetings will be held.
Well, okay.
So at what point does it become law? When the minister pronounces it, or this committee pronounces it, or when the president comes and makes an announcement? At what point must we now say, okay, we've been told and we must
We've been
adhere to
told,
it?
now this is what we're going to do. I guess if they talk about, because they preside over these functions, they can already start implementing them because they've been working with the ministry. However, it would be good if the ministry now comes and announces it, or the president in his address comes and says so, where upon receiving advice and discussions with the Interfaith Council and their recommendations, so this is what we're doing. Because remember, even in all previous instances, the government has deferred that they need to come from the interfaiths.
Sure. But, they were given the responsibility to do this. Then the recommendations that they come up with obviously pass through.
They'll be binding.
And then they would be then binding. So by the time it comes out in this manner and they sent out the release like they did yesterday, then because that they were given the mandates, then whatever they come up with then goes into direction.
Mike Sonko, the governor of Nairobi County, members of the County Assembly of Nairobi want to drop the mic. So there's a new push to have the governor impeached. And this has been started. Now, according to a story in The Nation, this particular new train kicked off over the weekend with a phone call from State House and a meeting at ODM party leader Raila Odinga's Capitol Hill office. That's where the fate of the beleaguered Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko was sealed. The second impeachment bid has been a long time coming, with sources saying it was only a matter of time, not if but when there will be another move against the former Makadara MP. According to multiple sources that spoke to the nation, Sonko crossed the red line through constant actions aimed at frustrating the operations of the new Nairobi Metropolitan Services. This includes denying the NMS funds, the recent barefaced attacks on President Uhuru Kenyatta on social media, you saw them, and then the plans to impeach him were mooted early this month, but it was not until the meeting at Capitol Hill on Tuesday between the county assembly leadership and Raila that things were firmed up. This was after the president reportedly asked the Jubilee leadership at the assembly to meet the former premier to tighten the plan. So, according to an MCA who sought anonymity, who's been quoted in this story by The Nation, the process began on Sunday evening following a call from State House the day before, and the reason was given was his refusal to work with NMS Director General Mohamed Badi and his constant abuse of the president. Sasa, tuone kama kitaumana.
By the time such a discussion gets to the point that it has, it's a done deal.
It is, eh?
Unless, there's always an unless. Unless some rapid fire apologies and rapid fire, yes.
Bend the knee,
Completely.
apologize.
Actually, essentially grovel. It
Completely.
works.
Yes. So this is it. So what happens now? If there's the move now is the Speaker will serve the Governor with a notice of motion detailing the grounds for his removal, after which Sonko will be given 7 days to deliver his defense before the impeachment motion is tabled on Thursday next week. If the censure motion is passed by 2/3 of the Assembly, that is 82 out of the 122 ward reps, Speaker Benson Mutura, shall then inform the Speaker of the Senate of that resolution within 2 days. The matter will go to the Senate provided the Governor does not go to court to challenge his impeachment. If the ouster is successful, Speaker Mutura will act as Nairobi's Governor for 90 days before a by-election is called.
Wow, looking like things are being stirred in this pot.
Clearly.
Okay, so we have to look at this one. We looked at this before, but with more details that are emerging. The country is staring at a teacher shortage as COVID-19 takes its toll. There will likely be a staffing crisis when schools fully reopen in January, as more than 17,000 students, or rather 17,000 teachers, will be forced to work from home because they're either in the vulnerable age group or have underlying medical conditions. The Teacher Service Commission has allowed teachers who are at 58 years and above and those with a history of chronic illnesses to work from home. Most of these teachers work in primary schools, which are already understaffed. More teachers are also set to retire at the end of this year. This will put immense pressure on those who left the classroom to take learners through a crash program designed by the Ministry of Education. The teachers will also have to deal with a heavier workload as they will be required to teach more streams. In schools that will have high enrollment, classes will be split to allow for social distancing. Teaching in shifts will also be an option for some schools. According to the records at the TSC, there are about 16,645 teachers who are over 58. Of these, primary schools have 14,333 teachers who will need to take precautionary measures and avoid contracting COVID-19. This means that the TSC will need to employ an equal number of teachers to replace them, as they will retire in 2 years. So teachers in secondary schools who are over 58 are 2,651, while there are 209 curriculum support officers and 352 tutors in teacher training colleges. So, those who are set to retire in the month of December are 479. The work-from-home directive was issued by Nancy Macharia, the CEO of the TSC, last week. And regional directors have been instructed to identify those with underlying medical conditions. To facilitate their working from home, they will be required to provide documentary evidence.
Working from home as teachers.
Yes, working from home as teachers. Don't know quite how that's going to work, but okay.
It's good.
Like reviewing the material.
And providing documentary evidence.
Providing documentary that you're working.
Yeah.
That is going to be...
Sounds really good, but how on earth are they going to implement this one?
This working from home, Abi?
The working from home bit I can even get, but how are you going to determine that someone is actually working from home?
When they submit the documentary evidence.
Of who they're teaching.
And also, they haven't stated what the documentary evidence entails. Work plan, you can present.
No.
Lesson plan, you can present.
Yeah.
But now whether that is actually implemented,
Yes.
it's another kettle
Totally
of fish.
different story.
As we go to the top of the hour, legislators are protesting the delay in prosecuting those deemed to have flouted the law in expenditure of funds meant to fight COVID-19. The MPs were recommending that companies that will be found to have flouted the law in swindling taxpayers through KEMSA be blacklisted from doing business in the country. They passed the report of the National Assembly Health Committee, which indicts officials of the ministry, the KEMSA board, and the management over the manner in which they handled the COVID-19 funds. During this heated debate in Parliament, the legislators complained over what they termed as attempts to cover up some prominent people behind shady companies that took part in procurement of COVID-19 essentials. They criticized the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the DCI for the alleged cover-up. They said, according to Garissa Township MP Aden Duale, on August 26th, President Uhuru Kenyatta gave the investigators 21 days to bring to book those responsible for the mess. These are the COVID billionaires who have brought us to the position that we are in now, where Kenyans, including health workers, are dying in numbers. Months later, no one has been arrested. But a section of MPs were faulting the committee's report, saying it failed to identify specific individuals behind the 83 companies that did business with KEMSA, particularly those that got tenders fraudulently. So they approved it, but it did not have specific names of individuals who are in companies, just mentioning public officials and saying those ones need to be investigated. That is a health committee. There is a public investments committee that is currently doing another investigation. The Senate is also doing another investigation. Too many investigations, you know what happens in the end. Too many investigations, too many reports, none is going to be acted on. It's just going to be a lot of talk, a lot of talk, a lot of talk. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Coming up to 7 o'clock, we will be live on KTN Home for the next 2 hours between 7 and 9.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
So for most parts of Mombasa Road, it's flowing pretty well this morning. There's traffic from the airport all the way to General Motors, stops at the construction of the expressway right there. And it's also building up from the SGR, then moving towards Cabanas. So that's where you have the bottleneck on Mombasa Road this morning. Moving out then past Bellevue as you head towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Also, it clogs up just a little bit there to get into the CBD. Bagathi Way is already starting to clog up as well because we see the construction that's taking place with the walkways. All right, let's take a look at Jogo Road coming into the city centre. Also clogging up a bit. Not too much drama there, but it looks all right. Outbound is where we see some problems then past Westlands, and traffic is also piling up there. Coming in from Westlands, however, you can use the Red Hill bypass. There won't be too much of an issue there. Coming off of Thika Road as well this morning is looking pretty good until you get to the Pangani Tunnel. It's easy street, as it were, for now. All right, if you do get stuck, let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to
2.5
start
minutes
your day.
after 7. Thank you very much for tuning into The Situation Room this morning. Every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., we broadcast on Spice FM. And for 2 hours, from 7 to 9, we are live on KTN Home. So we want to welcome our audience on KTN Home. Very good morning to you and happy Friday. C.T. Muga, as we begin the hour, what is today's proverb?
The sun does not forget a village simply because it is small. The simply I have added. The sun does not forget a village because it is small.
The sun does not forget a village because it is small.
No, it's not going to shine on you. Well, it's bestowing its warmth and then sunshine on you is not determined by your size or the population.
It's an equal opportunity
It's an equal
provider.
Yes, it is.
Okay. It's a very, very good thing for the sun. Now let's talk about what we do here on this show on a daily basis, and this is truth telling. This show was designed to be a truth teller show, a show that was designed to look at issues that are affecting us from a local perspective, from a regional perspective, from an international perspective. And then we highlight these matters, we discuss, we bring the issues to the attention of our audience, we bring them to the attention of those in positions of authority, we question those in positions of authority, we seek answers, we also seek clarification where it's absolutely required. On Tuesday, we talked about this gentleman who had reached out to us, and he had narrated a story of how his son had passed on from complications of COVID-19 at school. And we had reached out to him. I mean, he had reached out to the public earlier on the 10th of November by posting a story on his Facebook page saying that, he was mourning the loss of his son and even posting photos of a young boy and saying, "This is my son, rest in peace." And friends of his reached out to him and said, "Hey, sorry, what happened?" One of the friends is a good listener of the show. So friend alerted us of this particular happening after speaking to the gentleman and the gentleman narrating the story of how COVID-19 was the reason. And then, of course, once we were alerted, we reached out to the alleged father of the boy who claimed that he had lost the son, gave us his story, and he agreed to come and speak to us on air so that we can listen to the story and do what we always do, which is authenticate the story by following up with the relevant authorities. When we were speaking about this on Tuesday, he was to be on air via phone link. Then actually he just dropped, and we were not able to speak to him in the 7 o'clock hour. He had promised that he'd speak to us again later. Well, we gave the highlights of the story that he had given us. And then after that, we embarked on basically just doing the fact-finding. Now, here we are coming to say that fact-finding has proven that no such incident actually happened at a school in Kisumu County. No such incident has been reported in any hospital in Kisumu County. No such incident has been reported by the Ministry of Education or even by the authorities in Kisumu County. So it is important, and it is our responsibility to come out clear and basically here say that this story we have found out to have been erroneous. We have also dug up the background of the supposed father who gave us the story, and we have found also that he is of questionable character because of the details that he was giving us and what details that he has posted on social media. So this is our unreserved apology to our audience, to our listeners on Spice FM, to our viewers on KTN, to also our followers and those who watch our content online. There's a lot that we should have done that we didn't do. And this is what we are now coming out to say. We should have done what we are required to do by law, by ethics that govern us as journalists. There's a media code of ethics published by the Media Council of Kenya. There's the Standard Group's own editorial policy on how you basically go with verifying a story. We erred.
We not only purpose, but we apply the same stringent standards that we apply when we are interrogating issues, interrogating individuals to ourselves. We look at what we have done, and we often question the ability of people in authority to take responsibilities for the things that they have done and to state it as such. We have taken that responsibility upon ourselves to unreservedly state our role in everything that happened and where our stand is, and to also look at the issue and consider that it has given us yet another opportunity to be able to perhaps consider ways and means by which we can improve the service that we provide by going into even greater details and greater pains in ensuring that whatever information we pass through this particular avenue is thoroughly vetted, thoroughly checked. And we thank you for listening, and we thank you for bringing up the issues that you have brought up regarding this, and those who raised queries, those who raised questions, those who even raised doubts, and those who followed this story. We thank you.
I think we also acknowledge the fact that it did bring up a lot of fear among a lot of people, because that's the first thing that people heard, in the sense that a child could have gotten sick, could have died, and other children then would be in harm's way, or even the fear that you feel knowing that your children then would be put in such a situation. Very scary thing. And then to come and find out later that it was not true. We also acknowledge that that fear is not unfounded. We know that anybody who saw this clip or heard the words that were spoken then would panic. And we know that it went far and wide, and people then were in a state of fear. People were in a state of panic because of this. It is unfortunate that this platform then was used by this individual to give the false story. It's also unfortunate that we did not find out as much as we could, or much as we should have, before talking a little bit more about it. But I think also, in addition to apologizing, I think also then we have a firm commitment, which we renew today, to say that in everything that we discuss here, that it's renewal for us also to say, look, we will be sure that the things we discuss, we are finding out the truth, and only continue to talk about that.
Let's also look out for the positives as well, because there are many positives that come along with this story. One is the fact that our own audience reaches out to us and tells us there's something that's happening. I wish you could follow it up and bring it to the attention of the rest of the listeners and viewers. This is one of them. And in fact, even the gentleman who reached out to us, our own listener, we're not going to name him, he has even come back to us and said, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. I saw this. This is somebody that I have seen personally. This is content that I saw, and I brought it to your attention. And we say to you, no. This is, you did what you,
what you thought was right.
What you thought was right, and it was the best interest at heart. There are very many other issues that we've raised on this show and that have turned out to be true. There are very many other issues that actually our audience has reached out to us, and what we do is we ask the questions. We then go ahead and find out. All right, so is there likelihood of truth in that? Positive is that there's constant engagement with our audience, and we really, really appreciate that. And now the other thing is also when you reach out to people in positions of authority, they pick our calls, they respond to our emails, and they give us answers. And that's why we're able to even bring them here on the hot seat in the Situation Room, and they talk to us. They say, okay, yes, this is what has happened, and this is the situation that we have. And then we're able even to push back on that, which is what journalism is all about. Telling the truth, the available truth at any particular point is what we do. And then so when you look at the code of ethics of journalism, that demands that when you get a story, one thing that you want to do is you want to verify the story. You want to verify the authenticity. You want to get some third-party corroboration. Somebody else, apart from the one that has given you the initial information, corroborates that information. And that's very important. And that's why when you were going through this, we realized third-party corroboration, not checking out. Verification of this, not checking out. And that's why we're able to say this. So the positive things here is that there are ways in which things are done, and we're able to do them.
We are also fully aware of the trust that our listeners place on us, and we are aware of the commitment that they give not only to listening or viewing the contents of this particular program. And it's with this in mind that we have to again state categorically that it is our wish to inform and to inform well. It is our wish and our desire and our goal to ensure that the information that we put across, we put forth to you, is of not only the highest of standards, but is actually well structured, well researched, and if I may use the word, well truthed. In this particular case, we are saying yet again we fell short of the mark, and we apologize. We will not stop apologizing because we need to apologize. But with the apology comes, again, a further commitment that we intend to ensure that the standards that we have had, the standards we've maintained will be upped, and that you will be provided with even better service, we will be more rigorous, we will be more strained. We'll go to every length that is humanly possible to ensure that whatever it is we present to you has met the highest of standards when it comes to purveying information.
It's a risk of the business. I mean, it's not the first time that this happens. There are very many other stories where we may constantly, you'll see media houses put out a story and then you go and verify and then you come out and retract and say, all right, so part of the detail that we had been given was erroneous, or part of the people that we had attributed the story to are actually not in a position of authority to be attributable to this particular story. I mean, it happens throughout the world. This is not unique to us. So in the business of journalism, in the business of storytelling and truth-telling, this is what happens. When you get to a position where you get information, you get information here, you are conveying the same information, you will seek to establish the truth and authenticity of it, and as you're doing that, you're still telling the story. So there'll be a first audience, and there'll be a secondary audience. Primary audience may have heard it before it's been authenticated. Secondary audience. I mean, this is how stories are told.
Well, I think at the same time also, I think even as we're saying that we're renewing our commitment to continue looking out for the truth and making sure that we tell it, it's also renewing our commitment to giving the facts and pushing back on things that we see in the society which, could either not be going in the right direction or need the people to come out and say something about. I think also it would be very easy at this point to say, okay, well, we've been dealt a blow on this one. However, it doesn't stop us then from pushing on what we've always wanted to do and committed to do in bringing out a lot of this information and bringing out these stories, in telling the stories, in speaking truth to power, in speaking truth to people's situations, and, in speaking truth to life as we see it.
Even in calling out where we see a story has actually gone wrong. There are very many times, and this is also the other thing. There are very many stories that you will see on social media, stories being passed on, through the most common and most popular social media platform in Kenya, WhatsApp. Somebody will say, this has happened, and it passes on to very many people. Always treat that with, a
The
pinch of salt.
cautionary eye.
Yeah, you look at it and you're like, okay, so does it make sense to me? Should I then forward it? Because this is what happens. You will find there are very many lies actually that are being told on social media. And we have done this many times. We have called them out. We have called out even those in positions of authority who have told half-truths, And this is what we ought to do. This is what we do.
And here we are calling ourselves out.
Yes. Tell half-truth, my friend, will be on you, like white on rice, and saying, this is it. This is where you should be going. Position of, where we are at in fighting COVID-19 has not changed.
Nope, that's all.
COVID-19 is in the country. People are dying. Yesterday, reported by the Ministry of Health, 10 new deaths. And how many new cases reported yesterday?
810 is what we're looking at yesterday.
New cases reported yesterday. So we still have COVID-19 spreading in the community. And there's still responsibility for the citizens. And what we keep saying here every day, we have a personal responsibility to actually make sure that you observe all the cautionary measures that have been advised by the government, by the World Health Organization. And then there's also the responsibility of those in power to make sure that we are safe, that we are protected, to make sure that when you seek medical care, we find it. When a Council of Governors, for example, says that they have not been able to receive money for 3 months, this is something we bring out and we ask ourselves, so why is it that we can say that governors have not received money for 3 months, and yet they are supposed to be buying PPEs and all? So I'm going to quote this story here, which is on page 12 of the Standard. Counties have no funds to buy PPEs or hire more healthcare workers. This is according to Kisii Governor James Ongwae. The governor, who's also the chair of the Human Resource Committee in the Council of Governors, said for 3 months, counties have not received disbursement from the Exchequer. Hence, the national government should look into how counties will get PPEs. The last time we received resources was in August. If we had resources, would buy PPEs directly from the market, because procurement from KEMSA takes 2 to 3 weeks. But still, to buy from KEMSA, you also need money, which we don't have. This is a position that we keep raising constantly. The governor says counties have petitioned several times to have the disbursements done on time, to no avail. Some of us have been forced to run to the banks for money. How do you recruit personnel when you pay staff with loans? maybe the Senate can intervene. This is, I mean, a situation where we're still talking about we have a strike looming on the 7th of December from health workers. We have governors saying, oh no, one of the things we cannot do is we cannot really hire extra workers because we don't have money. We can't go to borrow from commercial entities so that we can be paying salaries for new staff. We are not able to buy PPEs because we don't have money to go directly to the market to buy PPEs. And even if we went to KEMSA, we'd still be required to have money to buy in KEMSA, although the KEMSA process takes a bit longer. All right. So if you go to the counties and you find that healthcare workers are looking at you and trying their best, but there's so much they can do. There is no supplemental oxygen. There are no ICU beds. This is our reality, and this reality hasn't changed. And we have to call out such things. Such issues must be brought up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's human nature. There is the sometimes you would think, okay, because something like this happened, where you will have crazies, you can have unscrupulous people who are trying to either for personal benefit, try and say something that would, scuttle the process of information, of truth, even with something as sensitive as COVID-19. And it would then make you think, okay, we would cower from speaking out truth. But I think our unreserved position still remains that there are certain things that are not being done in terms of the fight against COVID. There are certain decisions that are not being made to curb the spread of COVID in the country. Even still with schools, we're talking about schools that remain open where there are infections rising, where there are teachers who are getting positive results of COVID, where there are principals who have died as a result of COVID-19. Seriously sensitive matters, and still the decision remains to keep schools open. So, I mean, still being brave-faced enough to say that even with something like this that would potentially stain an image or reputation, you still want to come out and say, look, there's still things that we need to pay attention to. There's still things that we need to talk about. There's still things that we need to remain cautious about. Regardless, we're still going to push back on those ones without fear or favor.
See, the quest for not just truth seeking, but truth speaking is uniform. It is the same standard that we use, again, when we interrogate what is before us, what we witness on a daily basis in this country, on the continent, on this planet, in other countries. It's the same standard that we use on ourselves. And we understand that apologies alone sometimes don't cut it. Apologies alone don't quite undo what has been done. This we understand. And with your understanding and with the time, it's the actions that will follow our apology that will point to the way to the commitment that we have stated in the past, we're stating now, and we're going to state will be the norm in the future, that those very, very high standards will be maintained, not only with the news that we deal with, the information we deal with, but again, on ourselves. And should we encounter a situation where, despite all our human efforts, an error has occurred, we will come back to you. And we will point out our role in it. We'll point out what we have done, what we haven't done. And once again, we will call upon you to accommodate our apologies, because we will apologize to you. But we'll have taken responsibility for our role in it, our part in it, what we've done wrong, what we plan to do to change that, and then we will implement the very things that we have said we are going to do. And you will be witnesses to this.
When we're now going around, finding out the truth for this story, for example, we reached out to the Ministry of Education officials are like, this particular matter, you've got to understand, guys, is very sensitive. We are talking about children and children in school. And we are also talking, as we are doing all this, the Ministry of Education is in high gear, putting preparations in place for the reopening of all learning institutions come January 4th, okay? So it's something that, of course, we saw the reaction from the Ministry of Education itself. And we spoke to the PS in the Education Ministry, Dr. Bello Kipsang. He says, immediately I saw this, immediately I got this information, I sent my team out in Kisumu County and said, go to every school. And don't just tell me you've gone, you've asked, you've called. Personally visit every schools. Coordinated with the Ministry of Health and said, please, can you find out for us from every hospital? And this is the same thing that we were doing on our end at Standard Group. And that information also coming back from Dr. Bello Kipsang is how seriously the issue of schools and schools reopening is being taken.
It's being taken.
also now also goes into with the balance of when many parents hear such a story of COVID in schools, they think about their own child. And then the question that you want to ask the ministry is, what are you doing to ensure that the parents who are sending their children to school can feel safe? And I think I've got to say that, when Dr. Bello Kipsang told us that he personally made the call and he personally demanded to get that report and be told, what school have you gone to and what have you established? It tells you that they are observing and they are monitoring.
And they're taking this
We'd
quite
like it
seriously.
not to be, in terms of a reaction. We hope that this is a continuous process, that on a daily basis, the school education officers and the inspectors are doing that, conducting regular inspections, finding out whether schools are still maintaining the protocols that are in place for COVID-19. Right? And then we can have now that conversation of, all right, so can we say then that our children are safe when they go to school? Yeah. So there's that bit of a reassurance that, okay, the government is actually on top of this thing as we continue with that conversation, because I hear UCT every time saying, as we're doing all these things, we are going into Christmas, there's going to be obviously increased movement, there's going to be obviously increased interaction among people. Then soon after that, we are reopening schools. What are we expecting to see in January? Even some of the experts in virology that we speak to, they say, when you see something like this coming up, expect. We were told.
Sure.
When you saw the public rallies, they said, you know what, guys? Expect. And we saw it.
And we saw it.
So we expect something to be happening in January. Where shall we be in terms of dealing with that as a country?
But even more importantly, something that I feel we need to embrace as a nation, when we talk about truth-telling. These blanket statements of well-being and well-preparedness that are always issued out, they are intended to serve good, but actually they don't. Because when you say you're prepared and you've done things that clearly have not been done, what you then do is you erode the confidence that you should be building. The very thing that you're hoping to build, you achieve the complete opposite of it. It is important that the things that haven't been done are also stated. So that one understands that this is what has been done, this is what we're planning to do, and this is what has not been done. So it is understood. Because when we have a ministerial, a departmental, a ministry statement stating to us that certain things have been done, those of us who hear it take it as gospel. Now, when you then find that it is anything but gospel, that is not the way you want to relate to such statements. You want statements that you can relate to and take as sacrosanct, as truth that ends any other variety of truth that may be present. And
not half truths.
No.
Not I'm dressed, but what you actually mean is that you're in your underwear.
Yes.
No, just say I am fully clothed from top to bottom. Mean it. You're wearing your socks, you're wearing your shoes, you're wearing your bottoms and your tops. You even have a hat. You're one of those that put on
Then you'll
kofiyas.
be fully dressed.
26 minutes after 7, time for us to take a break. We'll be back shortly to talk about the 930 billion shillings pandemic war chest that the government is preparing and where this money will go, where the money will come from. Let's discuss that and the effectiveness of the previous pandemic war chest that had been given out to the country. Good morning. We're live on KTN, on Spice FM and online.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here. Not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those many people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you
And
used to do?
women are guilty about that.
Is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry
It has been
not.
a tough
The
year for
adults
your
in the
business,
room.
hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. The weather with Spice FM.
Okay, Eric, suffice to know that there are some showers in some parts of Nairobi. At 17 degrees, we will see those showers through most parts of the morning, but then it'll phase off sometime. Mombasa is not raining at this point. Highs of 26 and lows of 17 today. And partly sunny conditions in Nakuru at 16, highs of 23 and lows of 15. It's raining in some parts of Nyeri as well at 14 degrees currently, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Eldoret is clear at 14, highs of 24 and lows of 12. It's light rain in Kisumu this morning at 19, highs of 27, and partly cloudy conditions in Kakamega at 19 with highs of 26 and a chance of rain here later as well. Mombasa is mostly sunny at 25, will go to highs of 30. Partly cloudy conditions in Malindi at 19, going to highs of 27 and lows of 16. Kampala is mostly cloudy this morning, 27 the high and lows of 18, where it's partly sunny in Dar es Salaam. 23 degrees currently with highs of 31 today. Take a look down south and into Johannesburg, where it's sunny at 17, highs of 26 and lows of 14. Thunderstorms rule the morning in Lagos, 27 degrees at the moment. Although it's wet, it'll reach to highs of 31 and lows of 25. And finally, it's cloudy in Kinshasa, 31 the high and lows of 23.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Okay, right. We're looking at Thika Road this morning. Coming into the city centre, it's slow, but not too bad. And this is traffic that you can actually deal with. Moving along and not a bumper to bumper situation just yet. Mombasa Road, we have a clog up all the way from the SGR to the airport, and then Cabanas after that. But then it opens up a little bit for you at around General Motors. Yeah, it's not too bad. Out of the city, however, on Thika Road and coming out of Westlands as well on Uhuru Highway, further up the road there, it's slowing down a little bit. Quite some exodus of traffic. But it's nothing that you can't handle, not at this point at least. We don't see anywhere it's clogging up majorly. If we do, we'll let you know. But we think you can get through this traffic without too much drama this morning. If anything crazy, let us know, please. Spice FM KE. Reach us on Twitter or 40127 via text.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Situation Room broadcasting every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM. If you're in Malindi, it's 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, 96.7 in Eldoret, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and 94.4 in Nairobi. We're live on KTN Home for 2 hours every weekday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And we also live stream the show on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitter via our handles Spice FM KE. So the government has come up with the post-COVID-19 economic recovery strategy 2020 to 2022. And according to the report, the Treasury says money would be used to reboot the economy, investing in areas that would enable businesses to thrive and create jobs. The amount is separate from the budget that was passed for this financial year, the 2.7 trillion shillings budget. So the amount that has been set aside for this kitty, a 2-year stimulus plan, is 930 billion shillings to fight COVID-19. Where will the money come from? There's going to be a rolling back of the tax exemptions that were announced by the president earlier this year in the fight against COVID-19. And this talks about, for example, the exemption of payee from people earning 24,000 and below, the lowering of VAT from 16 to 14%. We're talking about lowering of income tax by 5%. And all those that had been given as exemptions, well, will now be clawed back. From that, once the government starts receiving that money, the government hopes to make at least 530 billion shillings from this. Then there'll be 73 billion shillings from deferring of interest payments on pensions, privatizing parastatals, and debt restructuring. That is going to save some amount, like 73 billion shillings annually. And then looking at donor and partners, including the World Bank, the IMF, the COVID-19 Recovery Fund, the Green Climate Fund, going to those and getting some money coming in. And then also looking at the private sector. Those included a targeted 500 billion shillings in diaspora remittances, road toll fees, increased investment in affordable housing and infrastructure. So, where would that 930 billion shillings go? The biggest beneficiary is going to be the education. It still takes up a huge chunk of the money. This is 383.6 billion shillings in support of free education, both free basic education, that's primary and secondary, especially day secondary schools. There's that money that goes through capitation. Social safety net programs. This include the Inua Jamii program, the ones that gives money to the elderly 70 years and above, and others that will be rolled out. 103 billion shillings goes into that. Transport and storage, that's infrastructure, 101 billion shillings. 95 billion shillings goes to water. Healthcare gets an extra 43 billion shillings. This is in addition to what has been budgeted in the financial year. So the question that now starts emerging, and you start asking, want to ask yourself is, would this then go a long way in kickstarting our economy, in making sure that those that are vulnerable are well cushioned, in taking care of them and finding that it's helping the society? What do you feel?
I mean, look, when you look at it on the face of it, and it sounds, for want of a more complicated word, really nice, right? It sounds like something that you would want to do for people. My problem is the longevity of such a program. My problem is this something that sounds good to do in terms of legacy, and say that, all right, there's some money we can collect, and what it's going to do is essentially, kickstart the economy, inject a much needed boost to make sure that businesses can survive and then thrive, and that individuals can get what is much needed for them to move forward. But for me, I would want to see something that was sustainable over time. It looks like this is a knee-jerk reaction to how we're going to be able to solve the problem. But is it sustainable over time?
It's a stimulus. A stimulus is short-term.
Sure, it is short-term, but the stimulus, but what does it do? A stimulus gets you going. A stimulus doesn't get you going and then stop.
It kickstarts
a stimulus
you,
kickstarts you, right?
And then now what happens in the economy then continues.
Right. But now I'm saying, it's in the mindset of it is something that it shouldn't just be done when you see something like this happening. It's something that should be constantly in the mind of leadership and government, to say that we always have to be in a place where you're rejuvenating and regenerating to make sure that you have constant growth. Because it seems as if things have come to a halt. Things have come to a standstill, where borrowing is at its height. Debt is a problem to pay. The economy is on its knees. And then we say, okay, well, let's inject. So you're always going to be at a place whereby let's inject, let's give it medicine, whereby what you could actually be doing is give that medicine, but then go on this healthy diet where you're constantly maintaining and sustaining health. That's my problem. It can't be that you continue to inject, because you're walking around then with this injections all this time, whereby you could have a longer period where you're having and making healthy decisions to keep this one thing that you have done sustainable. Sustainable for me.
Well, I hear what you're saying.
Be.
I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense in terms of, when you come to programs to grow the economy, when it comes to programs then to ensure that the country's GDP is growing, we should have very robust long-term programs, medium programs as well. But at the same time, I'm looking at it and thinking it's a stimulus to kickstart. It's because of what has happened. Because of Corona, something happened. There was a drawback. There was loss of livelihoods. There have been more people affected. There are jobs, businesses that have closed. The new businesses will try to restart. There are small SMEs that have really suffered, and they need a boost. And this is that boost. Okay, so the boost of 930 billion shillings for 2 years is basically that. It's boosts, give you something so that you have, energy to get up and get going. What I would be saying is, and I see is the same thing that the editorial in the Standard is saying today, is even as you look at doing the 930 billion shillings, think beyond that. Think the number of people who will require assistance is actually very many people. And this number is not likely to improve or increase in the short term. So there'll be more people who will require assistance. It's not just what we had initially, for example, saying that the social protection programs and the social net programs will go to the elderly, the persons with disabilities, and such others. There are actually now more people who require this support. If you are talking about then how much more can you do, that's, I think, a conversation that the government should start looking at, with the reality of how much can they raise. Because, well, again, even now, even if they claw back and say that we're going now to start receiving pay from those who earn 24,000 and below, how many are still earning that 24,000 and below? Many of those that were earning that money have lost their jobs.
True.
So you will not be able to really raise that money that you wanted to. How much will you be able to raise from income tax in this financial year, where companies have shut down, where companies are reporting losses, where companies will even go into... So even if you come up with new taxes, for example, the new taxes that have been announced by the government, 1%, the minimum tax, or the 8%, whatever, employment cushion tax, even if you come up with those others, you have fewer people who are able to pay. But you have more people who will require this stimulus. What can the government do?
What has been presented here is actually textbook economic recovery that is understood by people who study these subjects, and they have covered all the areas that you probably need to inject money into. Now, the theory behind such recoveries are not a secret. They're not things that are hidden. They're things that people understand, and people in Treasury and other departments that deal with planning understand. They understand this very well. The issue here is, what are the very specific areas that would galvanize all the other departments we're talking about to move us forward? Okay? Now, if you look at our formal sector, we say employs something like around, how many million? Formal, 1.3 million individuals, right? The informal sector, 12 million. 1.7 million jobs were lost. At the time that when this was published at the middle of COVID, those numbers must have increased. We were probably at 2 million right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The latest World Bank figures indicate something close to 2 million shillings.
Yes.
2 million people. Right?
Yes.
And even the data from the national, the government is also
Bureau of
indicating
Statistics
the Bureau of Statistics.
It's around 2 million. Now, the question that you want to ask is this: there is what you call the manufacturing sector, which includes the informal sector as well as these structured huge economies that we talk of. All right? Specific activities, not just money, because the money is one thing, but the activities that one expects to be conducted with this money that would guarantee the results we're talking about. It's something that one needs to hear, listen to, debate, talk about. All right? If you are talking about the informal sector, there's been a lot of talk about injecting money so that SMEs can pick up, give money, lend money. But beyond just cushioning it, restarting, jump-starting this thing, there has to be details in understanding that you are in a situation of recovery. It isn't that the money is given and you simply just take off from where you left it. It doesn't quite happen that way. No. There are things that need to be done to get to a point where you can actually start producing again.
This is it, to actually start producing again. And that's why I'm talking about sustainable projects over time. Because guess what? We talked about some of these things this morning already. With COVID, there's so many things that went belly up just because of COVID. But we must also look at the fact that there are certain other things that at the time COVID entered the situation, they were already going bad. If you want to look at the state of agriculture and food security, for example, if you want to look at disaster management and things that had ravaged the country just because of that, if you want to look at the infrastructure projects, some which were latent, some which were still progressive, things like that, there were so many things that were still going on at the same time, which on their own needed a boost, needed a much needed boost to, to start again. And then you also want to look at the responsibility that Kenya had then to pay its loans, whether to foreign or domestic debtors. That needed also to happen. For me, the boost is not what is going to solve the problem. Whereas it may help temporarily to be able to get things started, there need to be programs put in place whereby you have long-running initiatives so that it doesn't start and stop. So that even when it starts, it keeps going. They need to make sure that funds are made available for certain programs to go on. Yes, those need to be planned and put in place. It's possible that those plans and policies exist even as we speak. They need to be implemented. Those are the ones that need to be pushed to make sure that regardless of what happens, you have something to draw from. And I think that was the major problem. To need to have a stimulus package like this, whereby something affects the economy and shakes it in the manner in which COVID did, those things should have been running. So that you have existent baskets where you can pull from to say, let's use this to boost our economy. Because what it looks like is that essentially things have raised to the ground and then you need to bring them back up. It's almost as if you're starting from scratch.
Yep.
And it's dangerous to have an economy in that position whereby you have no reserves to fall back on. You can't boost your people, and then you have to now come up with new ways to essentially start again. And that's a dangerous position to be in. You want to have some level of sustainability so that you don't have to be in emergency stance all the time, because that's what's happening right now. It's an emergency stance in terms of the economy. Okay, we need to come up with new ideas. We need to pull from here, and here, where there's no reserve, nothing to fall back on. And essentially, to have a progressive economy is to always have something to fall back on so that you can come and make a decision and say, can we move this to help this? Kenya couldn't change its budget, for example.
Yep.
Kenya couldn't change its budget policy at that point, and like some countries did, whereby they
And why
said,
couldn't it?
money that we had allocated for this, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pull from reserves here and there and move it around so that we can sustain the economy, so we can sustain
You
the
can
people.
put it in areas
When
that
you
would...
say
It
we
couldn't
couldn't,
happen.
Why?
But what did Kenya do? Kenya now came up with the chance of a fund and said, okay, let the same people of Kenya who are being looked at to be protected will be the same ones who will contribute to say that the less vulnerable then will be
Harambee
sorted out.
Fund.
The Harambee Fund, for example. If we look at the UK went and had a special sitting of Parliament to say, we have a budget in place. However, because of what we are seeing now, can we move things around to make sure that the people are taken care of? But because of the fact that you have programs running in place that will bring about some kind of progressive development, you can pull from those and it doesn't suffer.
Reappropriation.
Absolutely.
Let's remember that, during this COVID-19 time, the government came up with an 8-point economic stimulus program. And when we've been talking about it, we've been asking various people in the various sectors whether they've been able to benefit from this stimulus program. Okay. So it was 53.7 billion shillings, and this was announced on the 23rd of May, 2020 by the president. Looking at some of it. So here I can see in the 930 billion shilling stimulus program for 2 years, the tourism sector is set to receive 18 billion shillings support. Now, the tourism sector in the initial 8-point program was to get some 3 billion shillings. 2 billion shillings to support the hotel industry, 1 billion shillings to engage 5,500 community scouts, and 1,460 community conservancies. So we have had a number of interviews with players in this sector and asking them, so while you're talking about how difficult it's been for you to revive the business, because this is one of the sectors that had completely shut down. So they want 2 billion shillings to support the hotel industry. Not one of the people that we've interviewed who are running facilities and establishments have come and told us, okay, we've been able to access, and this is what we've done. And it's a question that we have to keep following. For example, asking the Kenya Tourism Federation for figures of such, and Hotel Keepers and Caterers Association to tell us what has happened so far in terms of update from their members who've been able to benefit from this. But the point is, it takes so long for this stimulus to even come in. So someone is telling you, I'm going to resuscitate you. Just wait.
Just hold on.
Just don't die. All right. just don't die. Okay. I'm looking for what do you call them? Those things.
Oh, the paddles. Yeah.
Clear.
Yeah.
So a guy is calling for, uko wapi bana? Uko Mariakani? Unatoka Mombasa unkuja? Kimbia bana
You need that machine.
Ungonjwa bana. This is what we're talking about. How long does it take for you to access this stimulus package? When we had an interview earlier this year with the the regional representative for the European Investment Bank, she told us that they have already sent out money to various banks which was supposed to be helping the SMEs access these soft loans and easier to access loans. The only thing is that, the structures that are in place from the EIB and then the structures that are in place from the Kenyan financial sector would mean that they will be moving slowly. All these stimulus packages, it's about emergency. If it takes 6 to 8 months to 1 year for you to be able to roll out this program, for the intended beneficiaries to be able to access it, then there's a problem. And I think that what should go with this, and this is what the guys at the National Treasury, I'm sure Ukur Yatani and his people will be discussing, will be how fast can we get this money? How fast can we get this money out? We've reopened schools. Various private schools have not reopened because they've basically just gone out of business. We have children who are coming back to school on the 4th of January. There are schools that will not be able to reopen, so people will have to look for other schools that are already congested where they can go and reapply. Right now, should we not be talking about, okay, how can we support the education sector by ensuring that all the schools that were serving, had been licensed and were operating, are able to reopen? Private Schools Association has told us, they have conversations with the National Treasury. There's how can they access some funds into this? How can they? The issue about stimulus requires all those things.
A very important question, because everybody seems to be crying over the same thing. Because even when you see the stimulus package, again, very nice in the way in which it looks. It's great, sectors across which would look as if they were the ones suffering in the past. In the last 9 months, as a result of COVID, it looks like they're going to get the much needed help that they need, at least to start things going. But then the problem comes, just like you say, in terms of the timing when this money is actually released. But the question is, because across board, counties, governments are complaining, we don't have funds. Education saying, okay, yes, we told them we're going to get a boost to be able to open schools and such. We don't have that. The tourism sector, hotels, complaining, service industry. They told us we don't have that. So where does the problem lie? Why is it then so difficult to get these funds, which you have already been promised? So it's been earmarked, it's been, we're assuming, set aside. Why is it so difficult to get them from one side of the road to the other? Because it's not a stimulus anymore. Once you say you're going to do it and then it's not released immediately, it ceases to be stimulus. You can't do it because it's a quick fix injection, let's go. If it doesn't happen, it's not stimulus. Why is it that it doesn't come forth? Because once you don't provide that information, you leave a vacuum and people start to think their own things. Is it then, and even these sectors begin to think, was it then a promise to keep us hanging on, and then nothing was actually going to happen? You leave the vacuum and people say, and then they would probably ask themselves also, or are there no funds, and where are we at this point? Ceases to be a stimulus if you're not doing something about it immediately.
The COVID has brought about a situation that forces those who study these subjects to go back to a theory, one of the many economic theories, the Keynesian theory, which advocates for greater government spending and lowering of taxes, right? But for this to actually work, it isn't this token lowering of taxes, the yo-yo of it. It's lower today, it's brought back, lowering it over a period of time. And the idea is that it creates demand in two ways. One, if you're taxed less, it means you have money to spend. You have more money to spend. If you have more money to spend, then it means you can stimulate the buying of things that are produced. When you stimulate the buying of things, it means you also stimulate the production of that, because there is a demand that will be met and there'll be presumably an increase in demand. But what you've described is a situation where the Keynesian theory rests on the theory of government promising to give. And I'm calling it a theory because that's what it is.
It is.
If it isn't given, then nothing will happen. But significantly, if you look at what we are doing, we are reversing that theory. Instead of lowering the taxes, we're increasing them. And we're really genuinely increasing them. So what you end up doing is, you have a situation and the money that is supposed to create that circulation, or which hopefully ends up in that vortex, doesn't happen because the money isn't there. So you have to ask yourself, the mandarins that we have at Treasury, people who study these things in greater depth and understand it, and have algorithms that can explain all these things, what on earth are they thinking? All right? Because the theory we understand, and it's a theory that has been applied and it has worked. The government is stepping in. We understand that. The thinking behind it is sound. We understand that. But they step in word. This is the problem. Everything else that happens counters that very action that they said they were going to set in place to supposedly stimulate the economy. The economy is not stimulated. The economy stays exactly where it is. Now, one of the things that is a hallmark and should be an indicator of recovery from a situation such as the one that COVID has presented is change of habits. Now, the government doesn't seem to have changed its habits. You see, you promise, you deliver. They promise, and the habit that they had of not delivering is still taking place. So how on earth do you think we're going to recover?
At what point?
Yes.
One of those things that was announced in May was, of course, money that was set aside to support the education sector, right? 6.5 billion shillings to support the education sector. Part of that money was to go into the fabrication of desks. Those desks are still not being delivered. That means the payments have still not been made. Now, we're talking about how many months later. If you look at some of that money was go to hiring 10,000 teachers. Have we hired 10,000 teachers since May?
How many teachers have we actually even hired?
Since May. Have we hired 10,000 teachers?
No.
Because that's what was supposed to have been. I mean, so that you have 10,000 new people getting into employment, getting into the payslip. And then you're talking about getting 1,000 ICT interns. The other money, part of the other was hiring additional 5,000 healthcare workers with diploma and certificate level qualification for 1 year and 1.7 billion shillings for the expansion of bed capacity in our public hospitals. So that has also been, at a certain level where people ask, do we actually have 5,000 new healthcare workers countrywide who have already been hired and deployed? There was the issue of, getting rehabilitation of water pans and wells and underground tanks in arid and semi-arid areas, 850 million shillings. Has that money actually been spent? Has it gone there? Has it done these things? Has 1 billion shillings been spent for flood control measures since May? Or was this was this a 12-year program? Was it a 5 months program? Was it a 24 months program? Because you'd expect that if 1 billion shillings has been spent for flood control and 540 million shillings spent for the Greening Kenya campaign, then that would money that was actually it was a way of the government putting money to circulate in the economy. Has it happened? Questions always emerge on, and the way you're saying, City, things happening in theory on paper and things happening practically. 930 billion shillings stimulus package, very good idea.
Lovely figure.
How soon? When?
But consider.
Shall we get to the 23rd month of the 24 months? And that's when you're talking about that's when the money is coming out.
See, the situation we are in, call it a recession because it is clearly not a depression. Remember, Keynesian theory was developed during a depression. Okay? Now,
tell us a bit more about that. Let's take this break. 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. Time for a break on KTN Home. The conversation continues on Spice FM. KTN Home will be back with us in the next hour. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Right, so tell us about the Keynesian theory.
What I was saying is this. You see, one of the things that is absolutely necessary when it comes to dealing with the situation that we are in, where there's a slump in economic activity, okay, what people refer to as a recession, is you change not just the way you think, but you change both your fiscal and monetary policies. You change them. And then you change the way you actualize them. The thinking actually should be, you should have policies that are activist in nature, meaning it's not business as usual. But what we are being treated here is actually a business as usual approach to this thing. And business isn't usual right now. So if business is not usual, you can shout all you like until whatever color you like. Choose the array of colors in the rainbow that your face can turn to. But nothing will actually change.
What happens then, City? Is it that we are over-ambitious?
No.
That those that come up with the plans are not, going in tandem with the reality?
No.
Because the fact of the matter is, when you see that counties are not receiving money 3 months down the road. And it's the same thing that happened even before they received that initial tranche of money. There was this whole back and forth in the Senate and all, and there were those that came up with those conspiracy theories and said, this game is being played here as the Treasury is trying to get some money. So that by the time we pass this, then there's money to disburse. And we saw 3 months after that initial disbursement in August, they still haven't received money. So the fact of the matter is, in terms of cash to
There's
send
none.
around,
Is that what you're saying? There's none.
we are not operating
We
with
don't
that a lot of cash in hand. Okay, so are we then being overambitious when you say we are going to spend 700 million shillings and you don't know where that money is going to come from?
No, we are not being overambitious. Remember the policies that were needed to sort of like help us stabilize, as in who to borrow from and how to borrow. We neglected and rejected all that, and we said, no, we are going to go for these lovely short-term expensive loans, right, which will place an unbearable burden on the taxpayer to repay this. We were following policies that were guaranteed to put us in an uncomfortable position where now we're eating humble pie and going back and saying, that thing we said, we didn't really mean this. What we meant was actually this. This, you have to ask, what other game is taking place even as we're having this conversation? Because what is clear to me is this, there is something which is unspoken that is also going on, a competing interest in all these things. There is what needs to be done, it's understood, but there's something else that is also happening that is actually eating up this very, very same money that is supposed to go here or is being put, and is it the BBI? Is it the referendum? Is it whatever else? But something else is going on. Because if indeed the priority of recovery and the priority of ensuring that this economy is set on a correct footing was genuine and was real, that money,
things would be happening.
Yes, they would be happening. It may be in small doses, but it will be manageable. Because it isn't as though we are not collecting money. No. And it isn't as though donors and friendly countries are not giving us money.
Giving anything.
No, we are getting money and we are collecting money. Where is it going?
Questions to ask, and we'll keep asking these questions. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we talk about the BBI. So, first, there's a change of tune by some of the leading political leaders, and then there's the issue of increasing constituencies in the country to over 300. Can we afford it? Does it help us? Does it serve us? What are the benefits? What are the demerits? Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock. We'll also be live on KTN Home for the next hour as well.
Sugar and spice and everything nice.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, let's take a look at Thika Road entering into the CBD. Not so bad this morning, actually. It's looking pretty good today. We don't have much also outbound. It's also not looking so bad. Mombasa Road, the usual issues all the way from the SGR then towards General Motors, and then after that should be all right then getting towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. That's not causing too many problems today. It's actually looking very, very good. Outbound though, we do have some activity heading in the Limu direction. It's moving slowly and we don't have a major problem right now. The service lanes on Thika Road are actually quite useful today, as are the bypasses of Eastern and Southern. You can use those along a route, but we don't have much traffic building up. We do have a little bit on Bagathi Way today. And just go back quickly to Thika Road. At the service lane survey, you want to maintain the highway there because it's just moving very, very slowly. But apart from that, traffic is looking pretty good this Friday. Let's try and keep it that way, shall we? Talk to us if things change. Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
2.5
Room,
minutes after 8.
the
This
only way
is
to
the
start your
Situation Room.
day.
It's Kenya's biggest conversation into our third hour of the show, live on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online. As we begin this new hour, CT, today's proverb.
Indeed. The sun does not forget a village because it is small. The sun does not discriminate.
The sun doesn't forget a village just because
it
is small.
No, it doesn't.
Yes. Or even, it gets kitu kidogo from the bigger villages. And says, we have booked. It's like vaccine.
You can't have just yet.
Yes.
We have bought up everything that
We
is
have
going
bought
to be
up all the
produced for
sun
this year.
for next year. So small villages, maybe we can give them, in the spirit of humanity, we can give them 2%.
Token amount.
2 days a year.
Or at least 3 hours in a day, which we know is enough for you.
Yep.
Meet your needs.
Okay. So let's talk about the BBI. Remember, the drive to collect signatures in support of a constitutional amendment bill has already rolled out. It was launched by the president and the former prime minister. It was with several other dignitaries attending on Wednesday. So now it's all out there. KANU and the chairman, Gideon Moi, says he's launched his national campaign to drum up support. He was in Narok yesterday. Today he's going to be in Migori. Musalia Mudavadi says he's going to do it alone as ANC, campaigning independently for this. Others will do the same. Then we have the secretariat headed by Junaid Mohammed and Dennis Wawero that will now be coordinating how the signatures are coming and how they shall present them to the IEBC. There are several things that come out of this. Before we talk about the 70 extra MPs and what they'll redefine politics, something struck you, CT, when you look at the conversation that's happening now.
It does. It's not one thing, really. It's almost a plethora of things. One, the theory that I stipulate from time to time, that whenever you hear a lot of noise in the political arena, it isn't just noise. It's a negotiation taking place. Attention seeking, yes, but for a specific purpose so that you can be called aside and said, sir, madam, this matter that seems to be really getting your goat, how can we resolve it? Now, the noise may exist, but it's more excited, it's conciliatory, and what you read is people who talk about, well, things are not as bad as they used to be. And then there was even further discussion in the media that because of this, the groupings that we've referred to as Tangatanga, Keleweke, some people have been thrown into a bit of a confusion because it appears that there was a particular stand that they had known this was their formal stand as a de facto political party within a party. And now suddenly the song has changed and you're being asked to employ new dance styles and you hadn't prepared and you weren't wearing the right shoes for the dance style. So it's a bit tricky. Now, what we're dealing with here, and this is what caught my attention, was why I believe it is a wonderful thing to be a Kenyan and to live in this country. Because somewhere along the line, the political leadership of this country realized that there's something they can negotiate. Now, this is not as positive as I'm making it sound. It is sometimes extremely negative and is completely corrosive and harmful to the citizenry. This ability to sit, agree, and we've seen it happening in Parliament when they sit and agree, and you wish they could agree on things which are more positive and uplifting. But what caught my attention was how the tune has changed and the dance has also changed, so that BBI is looking like a success.
Who has changed the tune?
People who had raised issues about the BBI. Let's start with Musalia Mudavadi. He now is not raising the same issues. The DP had raised issues. He is not raising those issues. And he had been fairly vocal. And he said there's need for further discussion, there's need for this. Now, what has happened is we are informed that there have been changes made to the BBI. The document as we knew it. It's change that's being talked about. Process followed, we don't really know. The participation of the public and what have you, all the process that we think we've understood from the Boma's period, We just know there was a change made. We don't know by whom. We don't know to what degree. We don't know that of the demands that we heard of, how many of them are, we don't know. But changes have been made. And somehow there has been a quietening of the noise that was previously there. And now what we're hearing is not just consensus building, but rallying people to try and see how we can get the signatures. But again, what struck me was when you say you're going to places, what are you doing? We are in a COVID period. How are you going to do this? Are you giving us details of how you're going to? Because the rallies that we previously spoke against seem to have come back in a different form. Now, those are the things that caught my attention.
When I hear you say that there appears to be a change of tune,
yes.
So I'm thinking about, for example, what we're seeing being attributed to Musalia Mudavadi, the leader of ANC. Musalia Mudavadi was in Bomas when the report was being launched.
Yes.
And he came out and he said, I support this. I support the document. I support the process. I have some issues that I'm saying need to be looked into. And he was very clear. I am not saying we oppose. I am not saying we reject. I'm just saying we need to look at some things. So now, if he feels that the things that he felt he wanted looked at, there has been an attempt to look at them, he now goes on and says, all right, so I'm going to go ahead into the country to launch, to campaign for the signatures to be appended to this particular process. What I'd like to hear from Musalia, and we'll reach out to him, is the issue that he had specific focus on, which went on to financial management, debt management of the country. He is saying that his campaign for 2022 is going to be about the economy and debt management. Have those issues really been addressed? And were they addressed in to the tune that he had wanted them to be addressed? Or is he feeling that, okay, we've made some progress, maybe I've seen goodwill from the other side, so there's no point of me adopting a hard stance here, and yet I can see there's movement on the other side. It also behoves me to make some movement. One, the deputy president, he even says he was not invited to the Wednesday event. On the same day he tweeted, because now he's gone into tweeting, and he was even using capital letters in his tweet on the day, that he's still insisting on the issue of we need to have consensus. We don't need to have a divisive referendum as we are going to a referendum. We still need to have consensus. We still need to have conversations. Now, it's not clear to me, maybe the deputy president can see an avenue where more consensus can be had and still this document can still be amended. Maybe when it goes to the National Assembly, it could be, I don't know. But he is still saying the same thing. After Bomas, the deputy president has been on the point of, in fact, even going out to say, I am not spearheading a no campaign. My stance is we need to have a non-divisive, non-contested referendum. Still on that note, I see what you're saying. The leaders who would have expected to continue saying, you know what, no. What you've changed here, you still haven't changed, have sort of softened their stand. But I still would like to hear from the religious leaders who came out and spoke about it. The Catholic bishops, for example, they issued a statement and said, we are uncomfortable about this because of this and the other. The Muslim leadership has come out to say, we're uncomfortable about this. In fact, the Muslim leadership goes back all the way to the process itself.
Civil society. Also.
Civil society also had raised issues on this. It's still early days because this thing was published and it's being circulated from Wednesday, yesterday and today. So they may be still studying it. I think in coming weeks, you'll still hear some people, and we'll now get to understand whether people are changing their stance or they are still in the same stance.
What I find also interesting, yes, groups, representatives of groups have come out. But the people who populate those groups, do they follow the thinking of the leaders? If it's the religious leaders, are the followers of those religious organizations, do they also believe in what those leaders are saying? If you're talking about civil society, apart from just the leadership who have come up and said this is what they want, the people who are their ardent followers, do they believe? Because remember, the thing that this sort of discussion, when it's loud and it's over a long period of time, even people who ordinarily would not hear of it get to hear of it.
Yep.
And they get to think of it. And they even get to talk about it. This is a really positive thing. Do they agree with what the leadership, because we're talking about leadership, do they agree? Again, the proof of this pudding is actually in the referendum itself. That's when you likely know. But of significance, referendum is by their nature divisive.
That's what I was going to say. It's not possible that you're going to have
To have a
everybody,
non-contested
you're going to have
referendum.
It's not
consensus when you're going into a contest. Essentially, you're going into a contest when you're asking people to choose sides. By virtue of the fact that you're saying choose a side means that you're not in agreement. It already means. Yeah.
But also, there's a possibility of. That's why we come up with the words like unanimous. Unanimous is because people had a choice to make, and they unanimously made one choice. Right? Even in Parliament, when you go to voting, by acclamation, it's an overwhelming majority say aye, and even the speaker hearing it can hear well. The minority voice is minimal. The majority is those are saying aye. Or at some point, you'll actually see everybody says aye. And when it comes to nay, silence. So it's possible to have a non-contested plebiscite or election or vote or whatever.
Referendum. Yes, but it's also possible. It's also possible to have one where you almost split down the middle, where half the people wanted this and the other half didn't.
Yep.
And then that would also point to a potential problem where you say, hold on a minute, we're going into something where almost 50% of your country's population are not happy with the decision that is being made, because you're looking for a simple majority here. You're not looking for 70%. You're looking for a simple majority to be able to make a decision. So in the event, like with the United States election, whereby you have half of your population really not happy with the decision that's being made, and they essentially have a problem. And remember, this referendum that you're going into is to make decisions on issues of inclusivity, cohesion, and things like that. Now, if you go into something like this whereby you have it split, then you're already dancing with those inclusivity and cohesion issues already.
So you agree that because of that, actually, because of what this referendum seeks to do, which is build bridges, which is have issues of inclusivity addressed, then it would be best if you have an overwhelming majority saying yes.
Oh, for sure.
Like a
That's
90%.
That is what you would need.
Inclusivity there.
That is what you would need. That is what you would need to ensure that the things that you're putting through, you would be sure that they're being addressed. Because if you have a majority of people saying, actually, yes, let this thing pass, because then that means that our needs are being addressed. If you have it split down the middle, then they're basically telling you that this solution that you've come up with is not going to work.
You know, the discussion we're having here is a bit esoteric because it makes for interesting discussion and listening, but the common mwananchi doesn't really care about these things. They want to understand are they able to get a job so that they can eat and feed their family? Are they able? Yes.
Or are they voting on the side, or is it that the person who is leading them has said this is the way to go and that's the way it's going, period? We can't forget the group of a huge number of people who are saying, okay, the person that I am aligned to is on the side of this thing or is against. That's it. That's it. And I don't need to know anything else. We can't forget the people who think that way.
Actually, they think that way because they believe that this person that they're supporting
is representing all their needs.
Will represent, hopefully. That is the thinking. But they don't think about these elevated things, elevated ideas. The thinking is very basic. Will this enable me to do A, B, C, D?
And now, CT, look at now where it becomes a little bit more complicated. And that's why you have a lot of the pushback that you have from these civil society organizations, religious organizations. Because if that is the fact, that the common man, the common mwananchi right now is not concerned about splits at the executive, imperial presidency, etc., they're saying, give me a job where I can put food on the table and then I can take my product to market. That's a simple need that they have. However, what we are being told is that the reason why you're bringing all of these things into place is because you have a politics in this country that is so divisive that it leads to violence. Is that you have people who are so divided that there's no cohesion, there's no inclusivity, and that is why we're going into all of this. But what you're saying is that that's not what people are really concerned about in this country. So it's the elite who are concerned about this imperial presidency. It's the elite who are concerned about power sharing at the top. It's the elite who are concerned about this inclusivity so that I can also be part of this for political expediency.
Not concerned, obsessed.
Obsessed. The majority of the people essentially don't.
It's not a priority.
It's not a priority for them. They're concerned about what they will eat on a daily basis. So really what you're saying then essentially is that all this that we've been going through is for a select group of people, not the majority of Kenyans.
You see, all the wonderful things that are promised by these things are in the future, and you hope they will happen. But while hoping, there is the need to take care of just my daily needs. Now, we're talking about people whose daily needs are more or less taken for granted and so have time on their hands to discuss all these lovely newfangled ideas and all manner of things that will bring, hopefully, the sort of change that will benefit everyone.
Right.
But until then,
Sure. So now, in this pushback and agitation that we have, when you have several professional groups coming out and talking about things that they hope would have been included, that's where the listening needs to take part. So essentially, if you're saying that we're really concerned about what the people of Kenya feel, and they're making these suggestions, and essentially taking them and putting them on the back burner and moving ahead, then there's a problem. Because these groups of people who are coming out, the health worker who is looking for an allowance, they're not the elite. They're not the elite or the celebrated in this country.
Actually, they are.
The health worker who is earning
Yes.
50,000 shillings a
Yes,
month, who
they
is
are.
looking
They're
for...
not in the ruling class.
They're not in the ruling class, is what I'm saying,
That is
essentially.
a good statement.
They're not in the
Yes.
ruling class. They're the people also who are making a struggle for protection, right, in their jobs. They are the ones who should be heard. The people who are talking about the fact that they cannot get jobs, they're the ones who should be heard. Those who are looking for protection when it comes to how they do their jobs, they're the ones who should be heard. But it would seem as if this ruling class, political class that we're talking about, are the ones who are being protected by these initiatives.
Well, that is certainly one side of the argument. Most certainly, and a vigorous approach to it. But consider also that we seem to have surrendered decision-making on certain matters to people we consider leaders. So we may not say it, but it's like the decision has been made for us, and we are not overly uncomfortable with it.
No, it's a whole concept of representation. I mean, that's why you elect leaders, to represent you, all right? So the whole idea is that they would be able to look back and get a sense of what your needs are, what your feelings are, what your opinion is on this matter, and then they go and represent your opinion at the front. So, but what happens now, in many times in our instances, is that those we elect to be our leaders don't come back to us to try and understand, to get a pulse of what we are feeling, what we want. They just go ahead, and what they think is good is what they go ahead and push. And that's why you see a process like this, for example, those that are making noise because they're feeling that they were not included, or that their voice was not heard, or that their input was not added into the final document. So, for instance, if you look at now the amendments that have been made to this particular bill vis-a-vis those that had come out in the initial draft bill that had been presented at Bomas, you ask yourself, so who made the corrections? And what informed the corrections that they were making? What informed, for example, the change of the format of selection of the IEBC commissioners? There was one proposal, then now there's a different proposal. What informed the decision to change the ombudsman from being directly appointed by the president and sitting there, but now being nominated by the president, vetted by the Senate, and joining the JSC as a member? What informed that? There had been other voices that were saying maybe this person should be appointed by the Chief Justice.
Consider,
or even picked by...
Let me beg your
What
indulgence.
informed these particular changes? And who is it that was making the changes?
Let me beg your indulgence in this one, even as you're saying it, and I'm glad you brought it up. Huh? You're talking about political players who've been at this game for the longest of times. I read it and I thought, what if this was put there deliberately so that it could raise issues? And when it raises issues, it can be changed so that they can say, okay, we heard you, we've changed, so what's the problem? Well, all along it was known this one will definitely be contentious. Do you think they didn't know? They knew. This is going to be contentious.
So
This
decided
will
to
be-
just package it and roll it along,
Yes,
and
package-
anybody who
package
comes
it,
and makes
package-
noise, it's okay, it's already
no,
gone.
No, we'll change it. We'll change it. Remember, things have been changed. We'll change this.
So there are some things that are still here that they know that these things will require change. So once we pass it, next year we'll have another third amendment to the Constitution.
What I'm saying is, what I'm trying to highlight is that the thinking behind these documents, especially when politicians are handling it, what you see is not always what is actually happening. There's a lot more happening, and there's a lot more afoot. There's a lot more at play than you can actually see. That's what I'm actually saying. And what you're seeing is what on the surface is what you're supposed to consume. But what it's supposed to achieve, you need to think long and hard and ask, what really is the end game here, and what really are we dealing with here? Remember, two people sat, so we're told, agreed, shook hands, and then other people were brought in, and this process began, and we are here today, isn't it?
Yep.
We were not privy to their discussions. We're not privy to the amendments. We were not privy to any of those things. We are privy to the result of everything else in the form of this report. Now, I am saying all those things we're not privy to. We may not know them, but bear in mind that they don't really go anywhere. Because it's like they are the guiding principles of what this document is and what it's supposed to achieve. Because there's something it's supposed to achieve. And they're going to, those who crafted it are going to ensure, or they're going to do everything humanly possible to ensure they achieve it. You don't start such a process so that somewhere along the line you start such a process so that you see it to its logical conclusion.
So coming back to your initial observation, which is the apparent change of tune by some of the political leaders in terms of what they had issues with, and others who you'd expect to have said something about the document, and now they are full of praise and saying this is what is needed. Do you think that it's about the politicians looking at their own self-interest and saying, okay, this one gives me an avenue. I mean, with this, if I support it, I'm going to gain something out of it? Or is it out of genuine concern and looking at it and thinking, this one is good for Kenyans?
It would be very nice if the latter was the case. It would be, again, using that word nice, it would be great if the latter was. But from what we have seen, if we're just going to look at how it has been over time, that there's very little that politicians would do for interest outside of their own. If you see the alignments that we've seen as of recent, there's some people who didn't even, before the thing was even out, they were, yes, this is the way that we are going to go. Because you know that if you're in, essentially you're in. Moving forward, right? If you probably sat down and had an honest conversation, there are many things that have slipped under the door, and nobody's really even looking at them in terms of what they actually mean for this country. But in terms of for the development of the people, and I think we would hear a louder clamor for inclusion of the extra views that have come in, as opposed to saying, well, it's all right, this thing has already started, let's just finish with it. If it was really that people, or rather if it was really that politicians, leading class, were very concerned about what the development of the country had in store, because of this document, I think you would find that there would be greater calls for hearing out of other views, as opposed to, no, the way it is, let's go.
It's all about, starting with political self-interest and political preservation, and then looking at what else then can be
just be thrown in,
to benefit the Mwananchi.
That self-interest we speak of, it can actually work in the favor of the Mwananchi. In this way, most politicians want to move from one level of politics to another, and that can only happen if people vote for you. So even if it's on the face of it, they have to not just give the impression, but they have to convince their potential voters that this action that they're taking, which is actually really in their self-interest, in some way or the other benefits the Mwananchi. Now, that fast dance and foot movement that they do, okay, that's where the trick lies. Because at the end of the day, politicians are wily and they are wise enough to understand that the voter is important. They understand. And what they've also understood, that the voter is often content with just words. It happened and it was good before COVID. COVID, unfortunately, has changed that particular narrative. People want a little more than just words.
Words are not enough.
No, they're not enough.
25 minutes after 8, time for us to take a break on KTN Home, on Spice FM and online. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting each and every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We'll be back shortly.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
All right, we're looking at 18
The
degrees in
weather
Nairobi, rain
with
showers in
Spice
some parts, going to highs of 26 today. The high will be 23 in Nakuru, currently partly sunny at 17. Light rain in Nyeri at 17 as well, highs of 23 and lows of 13. The low will be 12 in Eldoret, currently sunny at 18 and going to highs of 24. It's raining in Kisumu at the moment, 23 degrees. We'll see it go to highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's 26 the high in Kakamega today, partly sunny at 21. It's mostly sunny in Mombasa at 28, going to highs of 30 and lows of 25. Partly sunny in Malindi at 21, highs of 27. All right, so mostly cloudy conditions in Kampala at 21, highs of 27 and lows of 18. And Dar es Salaam is partly sunny at 27, going to highs of 31 and lows of 25. Sunny conditions in Johannesburg at 17 at the moment, going to highs of 26 and lows of 14. The thunderstorms continue in Lagos at 25. The high will be 31. And finally, for now, in Kinshasa, it's cloudy at 24. Highs will be 31, coming back down to lows of 24.
Spice up your life.
Okay, have things changed? Not really. We're seeing some traffic outbound on Limuru Road, headed out in that direction. And also coming into town from Limuru Road, past the village market and then out towards further along past the Aga Khan Hospital. It's moving slowly. But Forest Road, again, behaving very well. There's heavy traffic on Enterprise Road this morning. Not quite sure, but it is quite some at this time, moving out towards the city centre or into the further industrial area. We'll have to take a look at that. If you're headed in that direction, that's what lies up ahead. Also, Mombasa Road, still moving slowly, coming from the SGR, but it's not as bad as it normally is. Hope that opens up in a short while. Okay, the service lanes take the cake on Thika Road this morning, moving very slowly. Stick on the highway if you must, or if you are, because you won't be able to get much further with the service lanes. All right? Okay, talk to us if you get stuck somewhere. If you find an alternate route or anything fancy happening this morning, let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Text also on 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Conversation, the Situation Room. In the room, you have Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and CT Muga. Join the conversation, 0719-012-600. Or you can also post your comment on social media, Spice FMKE, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Now, comment coming in. Now that people like Musalia, Kalonzo, and other party leaders are insisting on campaigning on their own, complete with their own budget points, it points at something. Could they be trying to checkmate Raila to stop him from owning the process and turning it into a Trojan horse for 2022? By joining the BBI bandwagon, even when they still dispute it, it gives them a fighting chance in 2022 against being targeted by the state. Remember, some of them are, just openly, publicly talking about in the BBI, but then maybe privately, they still have some questions that they're raising. Could just be that. It's a political game. It suits me well right now to come out and appear like I'm campaigning for it. I will not be put into the same reggae truck that goes doing the road shows. I will have my own road show. I'll not call it reggae. I'll call it whatever other music I want, but it's a variation of reggae. It could be dance hall. It could be, roots and culture, whatever. But it's just going to be, it's all reggae. Yeah, it's all reggae at some point.
You know why groups like the civil society become important? They raise the stakes. One of the things that you realize about politicians, they appear to be thick-skinned, they are not. Politicians are generally fairly thin-skinned. And they also want to avoid anything that might put their careers and their interests in danger. So when a lot of noise is heard, and noise is made so that you can be heard, that's really the purpose of noise, it opens up doors for further negotiations, and they also realize, unfortunately, that's how they realize. This gentle, soft talk doesn't quite work. The message somehow doesn't get through the system. So when they hear it, they will now think in terms of, yes, this is what I'd like to do, but how do I ensure that these people also get something so that this noise can go down? Because the thing about many political leaders, they also want at the same time to appear like benevolent, wonderful people who are doing wonderful things for people. And many of them actually believe it, even if they haven't done anything to make them wonderful. But they see themselves in that light as people who are intrinsically good.
Yeah, you think they sit there and you really think they sit there and they have a moment when they say, yes, I'm actually doing something earth-moving for the people of the country.
No.
I am contributing significantly.
That they do.
Yes.
That they do. Anything
they
that...
They think that,
Yes.
or they actually do contribute
No.
significantly.
When things happen and things are okay, they are part of it.
Of course, okay.
And so they are the people who are ensuring that these good things happen. Them. But even if they don't happen, they're essentially good people. They go back to factory settings when they actually set out on this political journey, and when they genuinely wanted to bring change, genuinely, and they meant it, and they wanted to. They got there, and the things that happened that we can't fully explain happened, and they are where they are, and they are who they are. But they believe, and I believe they tell themselves that they're actually good people who mean well. But the reality also is, the expectations that they raise comes back to bite them. Because when you're campaigning, you say things that you really know fully well that humanly you can't do this. But it sounds good. Just look at the promises the government has made in this month. I don't want to go beyond the month. Because there are really, really many. Okay? Now we are being told about the flip-flopping. We want economic growth. We want economic recovery. Then you proceed to do the very thing that guarantees that recovery is going to take place. You tax people more. You mop up their liquidity. How exactly do you expect to spur economic activity when there isn't the wherewithal, the fuel for it to actually do what it's supposed to do? How do you expect that to happen? Now, this is something that the people who do these things understand better than I do. So maybe there's something they know which I don't, which they need to explain, so that I can arrive at that esoteric level. This is what esoteric is in my mind today. Level of understanding. Okay, where did I read it? I'm trying to think of where I read it. Yesterday night.
Okay.
I read it.
So it's still in your mind. This
Yes, it's like I recovered, I rediscovered it, and I said, yes.
Let's use this word sometimes.
When you're talking about now, the intentions of the political leaders and the political class on what, happens in the country, comes back into the sort of changes that appear to have been made in this particular amendment bill as compared to the previous amendment bill that was there. So look at, for example, the 70 extra seats. Both bills had a proposal for 70 extra seats. But now this one talks about increasing the number of constituencies as per the Constitution, not 290, but now increasing by 70. The previous one was looking at having the same 290 seats, but then you have other special seats in other areas that will be filled through party lists. So what is it that would inform this? Why? What information did the drafters of this particular bill receive that told them and convinced them that, okay, maybe the better way to go, maybe the less contentious route to take would be to go ahead and increase the number of seats in Parliament by increasing the number of constituencies. So if I look at the objects of this particular one, it says the reason why this is happening, it's increasing the current number of constituencies from 290 to 360 constituencies. This is to facilitate attainment of fair representation in the National Assembly and to actualize the aspiration of the equality of the vote principle, especially in the currently underrepresented electoral areas. So it's basically saying that there are people who feel one man, one vote does not really count, because in some cases where you have densely or populated areas and not well represented, as opposed to others that have sparsely populated areas and the number of representation there is higher. So does this address that? Does increasing the number of constituencies address that? That does even saying that the number of then we shall have nominated persons going in to represent the youth, the persons with disabilities, and then if you don't meet the gender threshold, you nominate some more to fill up the gap.
Can I respond by asking a question? Okay, is there anything like overrepresentation? Is it possible to be overrepresented?
I don't know.
Yes, I'm actually grappling with it because, you see, whenever we talk, there's a background from which we base our argument, and we'll talk about the Kenyan population as though it's static. It isn't. At independence, or what, 10 million? We're now 50 million? Now, clearly, as the population increases, not just population, the needs of that population increase, there is always need for increased representation, in my view. Now, there are those who will argue with devolution, that is already happening. Again, you would ask, even if as that is happening, even within those wards, the populations don't remain static. If with every year, if you look at our high fertility rate in this country, combined with mortality rates that are actually lower, people aren't, in all honesty, even with COVID, what caused many deaths in a time gone by don't. People live longer. So the population just keeps rising. Now, are we saying that these numbers we're proposing are too many? Okay, too many as compared to what exactly? Then the argument of we can't afford it comes in. I actually don't think that even is the issue. Against the backdrop of our GDP and whatever else we do in this country, if that representation, in an ideal world where the representation actually meant that this development we speak of actually gets to the people, the more people you have representing you, the more likely you are to actually have yourself represented, as opposed to having one person representing an area that is the size of a small country or a principality in Europe, and there's only one person. How do they even move and get to where they're supposed to? All I'm saying is, it's a debate that has to be had, but it has to be had from a position of knowledge.
It goes also with that argument. Does representation guarantee development?
It is an avenue that will make development possible.
So that if we say, for example, that we moved from about 7 to 17 constituencies in Nairobi, if we increase the number of constituencies in Nairobi, the people to go into the National Assembly, what does that mean for the voters of Nairobi? Does it mean that they're necessarily now, because you're going to have about 30 MPs in Nairobi representing the people of Nairobi, you're going to have greater development in Nairobi?
You see the discussion I was saying has to be had, because when I talk of Nairobi, I would argue which part of Nairobi. Because our thinking about members of parliament, what certain people who live in Nairobi need their representatives to do, again, it's not uniform. Yes. If you are an MP of a place like, say, the area that covers Kibera, all right? It also covers the affluent part of it. But the needs even in that constituency are different. So the representation would be considered different. Some people will be talking about better roads and lanes in which they can ride their cycles, when other people will be talking about water. Other people will be talking about sanitation. Others won't. That's not their issue. Now, so when you talk about numbers and you talk about representation, I would argue that you need to ask about the specific needs that there are. There are areas in this town, in this country, where you'll find the landmass may be small, but that's where the highest number of people live.
That's okay, that's true. Increase the number of people who represent them. Does the fact that you live 7 meters down the road, are your needs different necessarily? Is it possible for this one person to represent those needs and these needs?
Actually,
because I'm talking about, for example, the proposal here is to increase the number of constituencies in Nairobi from 17 and add 12. 29. So let's just round it off and say 30 MPs representing Nairobi.
Yes, I think it's a good idea.
But
what are they in the National Assembly? Not in the county assembly,
No.
in the National Assembly.
I'm agreeing.
So tell me what it is that the members of Nairobi constituencies will do in the National Assembly that will ensure that the people of, the new areas would benefit.
My simple mind tells me something very basic. There's this thing called CDF. Right now, if you have CDF for an area that covers a very large population, you're one MP, that thing isn't going to go far. If suddenly you have 3 MPs, you suddenly have more CDF. So it means, I'm telling you my simple thinking.
Yeah, it's a simple thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So that now, all these many people who had to scratch and scrimp from this little resource now have more resources at their disposal.
Okay.
basically speaking.
Okay.
And do there's something you clearly want to say. I can see it popping out.
I think that you also have to look at the reason as to why this decision or this suggestion then was made. Was it that it was too big and they needed more people to take care of it? Or is it that the needs were greater? Or was it they felt that we needed to put more people in so that you could have more representation? What really was it that fueled the decision to say, all right, we need 12 more? We need what was it? I think it would be necessary to look at the reasoning behind
It should be
this.
all those things that City is saying, actually. It's about the population, the size of the population, that whole issue of underrepresentation of certain sectors of the population. So split up Nairobi and create 30 constituencies. All right. My question is, does that guarantee that the people of Nairobi, because they have more people in parliament, then therefore their issues are going to be addressed by members of the National Assembly, bearing in mind what the National Assembly's role is?
If you're talking about guarantee, there are no guarantees. However, the opportunity for that guarantee to be realized is more realistic.
All
because
right. With the role of the National Assembly, and you'll answer this one once we take the call from Ed, with the role of the National Assembly and what it's supposed to do, tell me those other opportunities, and don't mention the NGCDF, because that is just one, and it's a political tool.
Look, that one is a useful thing, and you ask me not to mention it. All right, let me think of something else.
Think of something else as we hear from Ed. Ed, good morning.
Morning to you guys.
How are you?
I'm fine. Now, CT has asked if there is something known as overrepresentation. Is there something that exists like that? And there is. In this sense, why have a document and still duplicate it many times for the same purpose? And this is what I mean, okay? For example, look at the national government level and the county government level, except defense, interior security, and foreign affairs, and I think another. The others have got 48 cabinet secretaries, the national government and the county government. Yet, downstream, nothing has been solved. Look at this. A place like places like Olkalau, places like over here in Kenny, Kaninikega's ground.
Yeah.
We have ward administrators which came with the current constitution, right? But there are still bad roads over there. So yes, the people are there, but they're not doing their work. So why add another workforce while the current one that was added is doing nothing? What assurance, CT, can you give me that the current additions that are going to be made via BBI are going to make any difference that the current constitution hasn't made?
I cannot give any guarantees, actually.
Or maybe how you can answer this is, how has increasing the number of constituencies in the last 10 years from 210 to 290 improved, representation? One person then has representing fewer people. Sawa. What has that done in terms of what it gives, how it helps the people? As a voter, when you say that, initially it took 100,000 of us to be represented by one person in the National Assembly. Now it takes 80,000 of us to be represented by one person in the National Assembly. Okay? Is that improving? Has that improved your well-being, your affairs and all? Let's go to Dr. Charles Maringo, who called in. Good morning, Dr.
Yes, hi. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Charles. How are you?
I am very fine, Charles. Yes, quick one. You know, this model of representation equals development is a bit out of date. Why do I say this? Listen, representation does not automatically bring development. One, what is the function of legislators? It's to make policies.
Yep.
It's the other wings of government that are supposed to now, implement those policies. So it's ridiculous to continue this kind of discussion where we're still talking about
representation into development. So, Charles, if we were to shift the conversation around, so what is it that we should use as a yardstick for increased representation, or what is it that we should use as a metric? Increased representation has therefore brought this benefit. What benefit would that be?
I'm not even sure there's any benefit. We've been at it for almost 50 years where we've had representation. I think the problem is weakness in legislation, policy development. It is not a function of the MP or whatever to take development there. They develop the policies, and from there, the departments are then supposed to, and then they account for it.
Yep.
But these fights or these arguments and these issues of one man, one vote, it creates more problems because you will never have equal populations. It's the problems we're having. It's not the size of the constituency, I think. So I think the narrative should now begin to look at what and who are we electing to give us proper policies, and then having the various departments accountable and, punitive measures taken in place. Otherwise, we will never equalize anything.
Okay. Asante sana, Charles. Let's hear from Kemboi in Baringo. Good morning, Kemboi.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay. So, waja mi naongelea swala la BBI,
Yes.
BBI, kuna viongozi wamesema BBI inaleta inclusivity. Na kama imekuwa kama kweli inaleta inclusivity, na wao wenyewe wamekiri kwamba hii kitu itasaidia Kenya kuwa na amani, So mi naomba tu kama kweli wao wenyewe ambao walikuwa wanakataa election, wanashua furugu, wanafanya hiyo mambo yote, wanaonelea BBI ni kitu mzuri. Mimi siungi mkono, lakini kama hizi mafiti wameunda na wameonelea kabisa ni kitu italeta amani, tunapenda Kenya ikiwa na amani. Wacha tuipitishe, lakini sheria iundwe ile inasema any mwanasiasa mwenye ataweza kusua furugu after election, ile kifungo cha zamani cha kunyonga watu iletwe Kenya, kwa sababu tutakuwa tunajisea maisha ya Wakenya. Kila mara tunasema nimeshindwa na mna hii, sasa tumebadilisha katiba. Tumekubali watu tubadilishe katiba, alafu tuone kama itasima hii furugu ya kila uchaguzi. Unajua sisi wa Kenya tumechoka, unaweka biashara kile upande mwingine, after election na yote inapomelewa yote unarudi sire. Sasa hii kitu imekuwa mbaya, lakini wacha hivi pia tuipitishe, ingawaje imetuletea mizigo mingi, lakini wacha tuipitishe hivyo, alafu tuone kama italeta amani Kenya hii.
So bora amani.
Bora amani, wacha hiyo kitu ikuje, ikiwa wenyewe wamekiri kabisa hii kitu iko sawa, ni sawa, wacha tuipitishe. Mimi siungi mkono hiyo kitu ambayo imeletwa na hivyo sijui waziri mkuu, naibu wa waziri mkuu, sijui nini. Mimi siungi mkono, lakini ile kitu mimi naomba tu Kenya ni amani. Kama
na Kemboi, na huu mswada wa kuongeza wajumbe katika bunge unaunga mkono?
Mimi siungi mkono, lakini kwa sababu ya amani.
Hapo mahali ambapo ulipo Baringo, uko katika constituency gani?
Niko katika constituency ya Tiati, Kabedo.
Haya, sasa Tiati tuseme tuongeze constituency nyingine hapo.
Tiati. Ni sawa, wacha waongeze. Ikiwa wanaleta amani ni sawa, wacha waongeze.
Asante.
Ile kitu tunaomba sisi kama Wakenya ni amani. Hakuna kitu kingine.
Asante Kemboi. Asante sana. Lydia, good morning.
Good morning, Spice FM. Thank you for your good discussion.
Asante.
I wanted to say that BBI is all about creating a biggest bloated government of big salaries. If Raila and his KANU bosses want BBI, they should apply for jobs as teachers if they are desperate for salaries. A big bloated government of BBI cannot help Kenya. The legal group says that our Kenya Constitution 2010, only 30% has been implemented and obeyed. Why are they afraid about the balance 70%? So, implement the 70% balance of our Constitution first.
Okay.
And see where we should follow the right procedures or, correct anything that doesn't work. BBI should wait.
Thank
this
you.
bloated government of big salaries cannot help Kenya.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you.
Asante. Have a good day. 0719-012-600. That's why we're seeking your opinion this morning on the matter of, how the process for the BBI, especially focusing on increased representation by adding the number of members of parliament from 290 to 360 constituencies. That's just increasing the number of constituencies. After that, getting 360, we'll still add a number of seats. This is 2 for youth, 2 for persons with disabilities, and then also looking at 2 for other minority groups. And on top of that, if Parliament does not meet the 2/3 gender balance, then you have to nominate to fill the gender that has that is lower than the threshold. So you still have a chance of actually getting a Parliament that is over 400 and something members of Parliament. Increased representation, what does that mean? I mean, how will we gauge and see? All right, so we have a body here that is a legislative assembly that is supposed to be looking at policy, that's supposed to be looking at laws and regulations that govern the country, that's supposed to be looking at international treaties and how we deal with that. How does increasing them to 400 benefit us directly? If you want just to go and champion this to the people and tell them, increasing them, this is the direct benefit you're going to get.
Actually, or even a list of those things in terms of what it's going to do that you see directly. Because of these additional numbers, this is what you should get.
We'll move from here to here.
Right. So, I mean, it just looks like the things of input and result. We're going to add this to the formula. This is the result then you should get. I think if you're able to do something like that, then people could see directly the benefit of getting that. But if it's an amorphous thing where you say, well, development will increase just by virtue of the fact that we're increasing the numbers.
Better representation.
Yeah, you just get better representation. It doesn't really say much. It doesn't really point to anything. Because the questions then would arise with what we have currently, where already the talk that it is already bloated, that your overheads are coming from just maintaining these individuals at these levels or in these positions. Now you're going to add more, spend more money, then you're going to ask yourself the question, okay, so what benefit are we going to get from this greater input? There should be something.
There's the question also of what leaders understand their role to be. Because even when it comes to representation, there are models of representation. Now, we seem to combine the known models and then we throw in some of our own and invent others that suit our purposes. So if it isn't clear in the minds, remember, we are talking about representing people, one, having understood what they want and going back to them so that they can refresh it. But what we're saying is we have a situation where the time when you do this conversation is when you want to be elected. Thereafter, you do what you think ought to be done. Now, there are politicians who understand this and they're constantly going to the people and saying, what is it that you want done, right? So they're actually representing your views, not just representing what they think are your views. So now, when you have such a situation and it is understood, and as Ndu very eloquently put it, it is something that is crafted and said, deliverables are these. Remember what we've discussed in the past and said, something, a social contract ought to be there. So we know. Now, that sort of representation is clear. So we can have a conversation about what we said we needed, what you said you would do, and what you have done. So long as it remains amorphous, it doesn't matter how many other members you put in. It doesn't matter. It'll be the same. Those people will be repeating exactly the same thing that others had done, and the Mwananchi who's supposed to get more benefits from this will not get more benefits, and the numbers have increased.
Yep, the same, because it's an individual voter who's looking at the individual benefit. If that individual voter still feels that the same, I had so and so was my MP because it was this constituency. Now my constituency was carved, and I have a new MP, but I'm still not feeling the value of this particular MP because of also lack of understanding of what the role of Parliament is by the voter, and lack of understanding of what the role of Parliament is by the politician, and lack of that social contract of this is what I'm going to do and you shall judge me by this. Then we need to have a lot of civic education, even as we talk about looking at representation, looking at how we can increase representation. 5 minutes to 9, it's time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. You've been with us since 7 o'clock. Join us again next week, Monday to Friday, 7 to 9. This conversation happens on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. If you're in Nairobi, just tune into your radio, 94.4. Mombasa, it's 87.9. Kisumu, 102.5. Nakuru, 96.0. 96.7 in Eldoret. Nyeri is 90.9. Malindi, 97.7. Have a lovely weekend, KTN Home, but we continue the conversation on Spice FM.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
All right, we still continue with this 3.5 minutes to the top of the hour. So the issue here is we increase the number of constituencies. We increase the number of members of parliament. Basically, if we look at, we have not had a formula that deals with the threshold apart from the one that looks at just mirrored what is happening in the county assemblies. Says after an election, look at the gender balance, then nominate to fill the gap until you get to the threshold of 1/3 and 2/3 of each gender at least.
Is it too much to ask and say, look, these are the requirements. You may be elected to parliament. You will be held accountable on these things.
On 1, 2, 3.
3. We want every MP to provide within X number of days, months of their being elected, to provide us with minutes and details of meetings they've had with every ward that constitutes that particular constituency, and what it is that the citizens in that particular part of the county have said they need. And you are to provide what was discussed and agreed and should be done and the priorities. You provide and say this is it. So it isn't just you and the people whom you represent. It is recorded somewhere and you can be called to ask. Just like we have the Hansard which records these things. You can be told, my friend, in your constituency you said this is what you're supposed to do.
It isn't too hard to ask, because if you look at other sectors of the same society within which government operates, that is the requirement. In the private sector, you're held to a list of deliverables. You need to have delivered this. If you don't, you're put on what they call PIP. So then we say, look, your performance is below par. We need you to either get back on board or we replace you with somebody else. Across board, this is what is done. We hold your job description is such. There are certain KPIs that you have which you must meet. You don't meet them, you don't occupy that position anymore. It's quite simple.
It's a
Now
contract.
you're saying
It's
that it's a
performance
contract,
based.
for sure. Now you're saying that there is more that you need in order to get this job done, and you need to have greater input. Then you should have results, commensurate to that, if not surpassing that input which you have applied. Basic.
And you can educate the public into understanding that this is something they need from their people.
Exactly. So that if it is not done, you can hold somebody accountable.
And even as you are campaigning, provide us with this and see if it resonates. I mean, at every stage, accountability forms part of the discussion, whether you're campaigning or not. And then it becomes an integral part of what your duties are. That way you begin to change the face of this representation as we see it.
Sure. I thought I would argue that, it's too expensive, we need to spend more. No, but I think the argument would be, it's okay. You're saying that development cannot happen if we don't increase.
Okay.
That's fine. Now, at the end of it, show us, or
shall we
during,
measure it?
show us that it has actually happened.
Coming to the top of the hour, thank you very much for joining us in this hour of the conversations. We'll have more conversations in the next hour, including talking to the Google expert on how you can get your business performing better and getting more traction with your online audience, and even just how you can even get to know other market areas. Yesterday we talked about the market finder, how you can get to know other areas where you can expand your business. Rosemary Momanyu PO, the Google SME lead for East Africa, will be joining us for the first 20 minutes, and she still has goodies to give. Keep it right here. It's 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice it.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, what are we looking at now? Too bad? No, not really on the roads today. It's looking pretty good. We do have some trouble spots on Mombasa Road, trying to come out into the CBD, and also off of Thika Road, being advised to use the main highway. The service lanes seem to be chock-a-blocked, and people are using those, and that is affecting traffic, moving a lot slower than would be liked. All right, coming off of Kiambu Road also, we see some problems. Waiyaki Way outbound, it looks all right. There was an accident along Karen Road earlier this morning, and it's affecting then traffic that is joining Gong Road for some reason. Okay. Apart from that, it looks to be all right within industrial area, moving very slowly as well, coming towards the city center. So if you're getting into that and you're trying to get out to the city, know that there's some traffic up ahead. It's going to slow you down just some. Okay, we'll see what it looks like in about half hour or so. But most of the suspect roads every morning, the culprits are Mombasa Road, Thika Road. This is what we see right now, and parts of Bagadi Way as well. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
it's 2.5
your day.
minutes after 9 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. As we begin this new hour, this is the final hour of the show for today. C.T. Muga, what is today's proverb?
The sun does not forget a village because it is small.
The sun does not forget a village.
No.
Because it is small.
No, it doesn't.
So no matter the size of the village, the sun will come.
An equal opportunity provider.
There was guys who came up with this for local villagers, who knew this village and the other. They did not know parts of the world where now the sun then does not shine.
No, they didn't. And these are African sayings where the sun always shines. Except at night, when we see a reflection of it in the moon, sometimes. But the understanding, if you take the view that Proverbs were also meant to educate, it has many roles. One of them was to actually educate. One was some were to pass subtle messages, get people to understand things that ordinarily they didn't. So essentially, get you thinking.
Yeah, get you thinking.
Sun, village,
moon,
you, moon, weather, think.
Fikiria sana. Uone vile utaishi na sisi.
Remember, the sun represents not just leadership or direction, but the enormity of it and the fullness of it.
Yeah.
And in many ways, anyone who is in a leadership position would reflect the same, pun intended here, of course, reflect the same sort of hope and warmth and benefits that the sun would have. And no discrimination.
All right, so let's talk about business. We've been having a partnership with Google for the last couple of weeks in educating you and creating awareness on how you can use platforms that are available on Google. Some of them free, most of them free, that you can use then to grow your business, also grow your own knowledge and skill in the digital marketing. So among the things that we've been taught, the basic one is you want to have your business having its own presence on Google, that is on Google search results. You don't have to think about, until the day I create my website. Fine, it's good enough that you create your own website, then you can be putting your own information. But also you can create a simple platform on Google that when someone comes and searches for, some certain keywords or the kind of business that you provide, they can actually see your business. And this is called now the business profile. So Google My Business, the business profile, you create it. Someone comes and searches for your kind of business or your kind of products or services. You appear at the top of the search results, and you're able even to put your telephone number. You're able to put there your location, your business location, which links to the map. You can also link your website if you have a website. You can allows people who have used and sampled your services or products to rate you and to comment. So someone can give you a 5-star and say, I tried CT's juice ya ukwaju, and it was very, very good. It's good. It actually boosted my immunity. I could feel immune within 6 hours.
I've heard you.
Of trying it.
I've heard you.
This is how we see this all the time when you're actually going and you're going through your journey of purchase. You'll go and search something online, and then you'll find where people have made a comment. You want to see what are the others that have tried this said. So if you find a lot of it is negative, you're like, this one, no. If you find a lot of it is positive and it actually looks genuine, you are like, all right, this one is good. There are some that would, and people are unscrupulous. They will try and bring their people to come and say nice things. And you can also pick it out and see these ones, the way they are talking, this language, they sound and look coached. So This Google My Business profile is good. And how you get this done is you deal with the partners that have been appointed by Google, that are working with Google. They're called Africa 118. So just do google.africa118.co.ke. It'll open a page. On that page, there's a phone number that you can call, and also you can request a callback. They call you back within 24 hours, and they'll set you up for free. They'll just ask you your business information. What's the name of your business? Where are you located? What kind of services or products do you offer? And such other information. They set you up your page, and they also verify you. So once you're verified, you also then rank highly in the search results. We have been getting some goodies from our Molimu, Rosemary Momanyo Pio, who's the SME lead for East Africa at Google, who's the one who's been teaching us all these things that I'm talking about. Now, it sounds like I've known them forever. No, we were taught by Rosemary just a couple of days ago, and many of you have also been listening in. So Rosemary is back online, and today she has more goodies and more lessons. Rosemary, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you this morning?
I am fine, thank you.
Super. Morning, Drew. Morning, Titi.
Good morning,
Good
Rosemary.
morning.
Great. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too. Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you.
Okay. So you've been giving us some goodies. Yesterday we gave some 3 goodies to people who answered about what Market Finder is. And just to recap that for the benefit of those that may have missed the exam and the lesson. So the question yesterday was, what is Market Finder? And Google, Ndu, what was the answer?
So Market Finder, well,
Under the bus. Like this is what it's called.
don't mind him. I know what you're trying to do. But there were many answers. The specific one that you were looking for.
How do you find it?
How do you find Market Finder?
Yes.
That was a second question.
Yes, that's the one which gave problems. I mean, the simple
The one that
answer.
gave problems, so it was
How do you find it?
The response is-
g.co/Go Africa. That's where you find it.
Africa has to feature somewhere.
Yeah.
.co.ke.
Yes.
It opens a page, and then you've actually
And then the
now-
second tab is what you're
second
looking
tab.
for.
The second tab.
And Market Finder is this tool that helps you to see what other markets your kind of product or service is being sought for.
But also,
Sindio,
what I realize as I listen to all this is that as you go through this process, you actually get to understand more and more how to use systems such as this one. Because it opens your eyes to things that ordinarily you wouldn't really be interested in looking at.
Yeah, some things that you just, you live in your own bubble.
Yes.
You think,
I'm very comfortable in that
how I
bubble.
do my business is I talk to people.
Yes.
Or I send out my people to go and knock on doors.
On other people's doors.
Other people's doors. Now here you can actually still have those people going to knock on other people's doors, but then you can also use a tool like this.
Actually,
and knocks on very many more people's doors.
It's the novelty
at
of
the
it.
same time.
It's the novelty of it. And with business, if you can't innovate and you can't think ahead and look for new markets, then that business of yours will die.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Morimu, today you still have some more hampers to give away. What are the questions for today?
Yeah, so we spoke about creating awareness of your products through advertising. So today I want to understand if they remember what the products are to create awareness for advertising of your products. So question number 1, what are the 3 advertising products? Number 2, how do they work? And then bonus question, how are you charged for them? How do you pay for them? So let me repeat.
What are the 3 advertising platforms?
Yes.
Hey, and now, when you use now some heavy words, advertising platforms, what exactly are you looking for? Like what I would simplify that.
How do you create awareness of your products? If you do have a business profile, you want to export your products, you're not using Market Finder, you want to move out and begin exporting your product, your mongoose tail and rat tail hat to the US, for example, and now you want to create awareness of your products in the US through digital platforms. How then do you create this awareness? And you create it through advertising. And I talked to you about 3 advertising platforms on creating awareness.
Okay.
Yes. What are these platforms?
So those 3 platforms. And then the second question is how they work.
How do they work? Correct.
Okay. And there's a bonus
question. And then a bonus question. Yes. Now that you know what they are and how they work, how do you pay for them?
How do you pay for them?
Yeah, and that's for the very smart.
How do you pay
It's
for them? Are you
about-
asking like how the money comes from me to you to Google?
No, it's actually, let me clarify. So one idea could be, do I pay when people see my ad? Do I pay regardless, just by putting my ad out there in the market? So
It's like,
there's
is
a
there
particular
fixed charge,
phrase.
or is
Is
there
there a fixed
a
charge?
variable rate, and how does that work? Such.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. 0719-012-600 or Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter. The question has already been posted there by Mr. Brian Amulioto. So get to it and respond. And also you can call in 0719-012-600. We're talking about advertising this time. So all those things that you've done, your business is online and you are seeking to advertise. If, as we wait for the answers, maybe Rosemary, you can just give us insights. How many people, how many businesses advertise in Kenya? And or such kind of things. I mean, have you seen a growth in terms of the number of SMEs that are using the advertising tool?
To be honest, I mean, I think there's limited awareness that these tools actually exist. I remember a lot of businesses don't understand that a lot of these tools are available within their reach and they're actually affordable. There's this idea or perception that the tools are quite pricey and they can't afford them, but they're actually quite affordable. And you can actually pay for them on a daily basis. So if you have a certain amount of money, for example, I only have 1,000 shillings, you could say, I want to use this 1,000 shillings over 10 days, and it's very possible. So you only would say, I want to only use 100 shillings per day, and therefore put your products online for 100 shillings per day. So the beautiful thing is that the tools are affordable, but the challenge we have is there's low awareness that these tools exist, or number two, that they are affordable. So I think what we need to do as an industry is to try and create more awareness that the platform exists, and it's within reach for small and medium business owners. The ones who tend to use these tools tend to be the more larger organizations, the big brands know them.
Yep.
And so the smaller businesses, unfortunately, right now feel like it's outside of their reach. So my goal is to try and help create even more awareness to them that it's affordable, and there's no reason why you cannot test it out and go with what you can afford. If it's 1,000 shillings over 10 days, do that.
I know you're giving an example that the 1,000 shillings divided by 10 is an example, but in reality, what is the lowest that you can expect to pay, even if it's over a period of time? And what is the longest period of time that this installment system will allow you to pay?
There's actually no minimum, to be honest, CT. It's really a matter of the economy of the macro market that you're in. So, for example, in a market like Kenya, there are very few advertisers. So what you'd pay for an ad is so much cheaper than what you pay for that same ad if you're in the US or in the UK. So in that case, now you base on the competitive nature of the market that you're in, and then go with the average. So you could spend as low as USD 0.01 for a particular click, for example, if you're to charge that for a click. And in that case, you could say, I only want to get 10 clicks. I'm happy with 10 leads a day. And if the average cost per click is USD 0.01, then that's what I'm going to spend per day. And that way you define for yourself your boundary, how much you want to spend in a day, and then you get the results from that minimum spend.
Rosemary,
or you could say, I have...
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead and do.
What are the folks who are getting their business seen? What kind of amounts are we seeing them spending?
Yeah. So I'll probably say it depends on the market. So if I'm in Kenya, for example, I could actually spend as low as USD 0.01 per click, right, for an ad per day. And I could spend as high as $1 for an ad per click if I was in the US. So if I want to think about it, it's a matter of saying, where do I want to have my ad seen? Do I want my ad to be seen by Kenyans only? Then that would be a much lower investment. So you could actually say maybe even 1,000 shillings a day would give you a massive reach, for example, in Kenya. But if you're trying to get eyeballs in the US, that would be a drop in the ocean. So it would vary. Where is your market? Where is your audience? What is the average investment that would be required to give you the optimal visibility in that market? So if I was in Kenya and I'm caring only about people who are in Kenya to see my ad, then I'll probably say even maybe USD 100 shillings can actually work on one of the networks, which I won't disclose because I'll give the answer away.
Sure.
But nonetheless, yeah, you can actually say on average, I would see SMEs spending 200 shillings a day in Kenya and are getting optimal visibility.
Okay.
Actually, very good visibility per day.
That's a very good thing to hear. Just to recap the questions for today is now we're talking about advertising today, and you stand a chance of winning a Google hamper plus more goodies that Rosemary is putting in. How much are you throwing in again? Now that there's advertising today, there must be money, right?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So yes, so you will get the hamper, and I'll also throw in that hamper 1 month of Google Ads.
Okay.
Worth $100, which is roughly 11,000 Kenya shillings.
So 1 month of Google Ads worth around 11,000 Kenya shillings plus the hamper. If you are able to answer these 3 questions, so we have been speaking about creating awareness through advertising on Google platforms. So there are 3 platforms for advertising on Google. What are these 3 platforms? That's a question number 1. Question number 2, tell us how each of them works. And then question number, which is a bonus question, number 3, the average, how you pay. And this is how then do you get to pay for this? Not at how, whether you can pay via M-Pesa or via card. No. It's how are they charged? How is an ad charged? So very many questions, and I mean very many answers already coming in. We'll be sampling them on social media as we talk about this. Rosemary, you've just explained to us, how many people are advertising right now online. How many of them are going to pay online? Every time you're talking about the charge and the cost, you're talking about it in dollars. Is that how Google operates? So when I'm going to actually place my ad, I'll have to think about the charges in dollars? Or does Google then talk about Kenya and then it converts to shillings?
So actually, unfortunately, right now we're yet to get Kenyan currency into the system, the ad system, but it's a requirement that we're going to be able to enable next year. So right now, unfortunately, we have to buy the ads in USD, but that will change next year. So just this year, bear with me. We have to just talk in USD, but we have the conversion instantly.
Okay.
So you can still pay through M-Pesa. Don't worry about getting USD to book your ads. That is how we calculate on the back end. But in terms of how you can pay for this ads, our partner, Africa 108, are able to receive your payment through M-Pesa or through Airtel Money. So that should not be a limiting factor for you. You don't have to have a credit card or USD currency. You can pay in Kenya shillings, and you can pay through M-Pesa or Airtel Money or Telcom. So yeah, there is no hindrance for you to book these ads. Just go to our partner. They will accept your Kenyan shilling currency. But on the back end, we unfortunately showcase the currency spend in USD. But that will change next year.
Okay. So let's see whether some of the answers that are coming in.
Okay, so the platforms that you're asking about, Edwin says Google Ads, Google Marketing Platform, and Ad Manager.
No.
Edwin, hey, you've gone technical, Edwin. Google Ads, Google Marketing Platform, and Ad Manager. Way.
No.
What are those, Rosemary?
So he's talking about Google Ads, which yes, these are Google Ads, but that's not the actual platform, right? Ad Manager, was that the second question? Answer was what? Sorry,
Google Marketing Platform.
No, there's no such thing as marketing platform, but and then the third one was, I think, Ad Manager.
Yes.
No, that doesn't exist. No.
Okay.
Next.
Mumbi says, the platforms upon which you can create awareness, social media is where she has gone, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Those are correct answers, but not Google platforms. Okay. But those are correct. You can actually advertise on Facebook, on social media. Absolutely, yes. Those are platforms, but those are not Google platforms.
So the question is specific. If you're advertising on Google, what are the platforms that you advertise on? So let's just use an example, okay? So if you're advertising on radio, on Spice FM, the way you can advertise is by paying for a commercial that is recorded that airs. When we go into a commercial break, the ads that run. Another way that you can advertise is by having the presenters talk about your product, and this is called presenter mentions. Another way of advertising is by having Spice FM come and do an activation at your location. So we come and do an outside broadcast. So those are the kind of things that we're talking about. So when it comes to advertising on Google itself, How is it
Yes.
that your ad will appear, and how will your ad be served? How will people see that ad? How will they get to see it? Maybe you can give one hint.
Yes. So one hint is one of the platforms leverages publisher networks. So publishers are people who have multiple websites, and the ads then go on that publisher network, and that is one form. Another form, I can give another hint, is when you're watching videos, right? What platform are you watching those videos on? So those are two very good hints. The third one, it's a no-brainer.
Okay. So Dave has
part of our name.
Dave has an answer here. Dave is answering the first question, and he said search advertising, video advertising, and display advertising.
Spot on.
That's
That one,
spot on.
correct.
That's
100%.
Hey, Dave.
Well done, David. Well done.
Hey.
Spot on.
So again, the answers?
Search advertising, video advertising, and display advertising.
Search,
Spot on.
video, and display advertising. Okay. So
Correct.
maybe now we can ask, now the second question is, there's search advertising. How does search advertising work? I mean, how will you be able to reach your audience if you advertise through search? Or how will you be able to reach your audience if you advertised via YouTube? How would you be able to reach your audience if you advertised via the display advertising option? I think maybe explain that display advertising option platform again a bit.
Yes. So display is just a word of, just think about a display. A display, like if you went into town and you saw people putting out things on display, right? Just things, pictures, posters,
Billboards.
banners, billboards, exactly. That's all display advertising. When you transfer that now to an online presence, you're reading content. I'm reading, I want to, let's say, learn how to begin this new diet, intermittent fasting. And so I go to this health article or that explains to me what is IF, intermittent fasting. So I'm reading the how it works, and then I see a banner that says, okay, you can lose weight by drinking this concoction of lemon, ginger, and honey, a banner by some company that is selling lemon, ginger, honey products. So that little banner is what I would call display advertising, right? Where the banner shows up as I'm browsing content that I'm currently curious on. Or I want to buy a car. I'm going to car comparison websites. I'm comparing Toyota versus a Volkswagen versus a Hyundai. And then I'm on that reviewing the reviews, and I see an ad that says, come to Toyota Kenya. We're offering you complimentary 10% off your first month payment, right?
Yeah.
That banner that I see there is what we call display advertising. So I say Toyota Kenya banner as I'm browsing car review websites. So that is what we call display advertising. We are able to put banners on publisher websites and are able to engage with the audience as they're reading content that's related to that particular category.
So
the
Google
publishers
is able
are
to place my ad on, for example, the Standard website.
Yes.
So I'm on the
Yes.
Standard. I'm actually on the Standard website. I'm reading a news article, and I can see
Yes.
an ad on the side. This has actually been served by Google there, and Google has partnered with Standard.
Yes, correct. So in this case, Standard is a publisher, and Google has allowed us to, we're able to put ads on that publisher website, and we do a revenue split. So whenever the ad is clicked when I'm reading Standard content, we'll split that revenue between Google and Standard. But in this case, the advertiser, let's say it's KCB, will be the one who will pay for that ad.
Okay.
So I'm reading Standard Media, I see a KCB ad coming through, I click on the ad, and then what happens is KCB will pay for that ad, and at the end of the day, Google will get a revenue split between Google and Standard Media Group. So that's what we call a publisher platform.
The question I'm about to ask was always in the making. What I've heard with reference to this advertising, it's very stimulating to the mind. Sounds good. Now, do we have success stories in this field?
Yes, actually, what we have seen that is people are, I'd call them, you need to find them when they're in that zone. So in this case, I'm actually looking to lose some weight. I want to try intermittent fasting. And so when you pass them that ad that says here, try this lemon ginger honey concoction, I'll be more in tune to, let me check it out and see what people are saying about it. Does it really work? So I'm already in that mindset of trying to get into that habit. And therefore, you're able to come to me at that point where I'm actually expressing some sort of intent, and I'm in the mind space. So yes. And then when it comes to search, I have the actual intent. I'm looking to buy an affordable car. So I'm fighting for cheap cars in Kenya. So when I see the banner for Toyota Kenya, what happens? I'm actually going to be keen to click on that banner because I want to learn more about this ad they have for Toyota Kenya. So I have the intent of buying a car, and therefore your ad is very relevant. So when you think about the relevant platforms, yes, you're able to capture intent and capture them at that point of need.
So I think just to add to what CT is asking, are there advertisers who come back and say, you know what, I actually advertised via search or via display, and I have seen so many returns. I mean, people have bought my product or people have sought my services just because they saw my advert online.
Yes. So think about the airlines. Think about even our local carriers that are within domestic markets. So Jumbo Jet, SafariLink. So the other day I was looking for tickets to Diani, and I saw an ad for SafariLink, and the net ad below was Jumbo Jet. So clearly, I clicked on that ad, I went and bought the tickets. So we have been able to see them coming back again, because they come back because they are seeing conversions. They are seeing, you know what, I'm actually selling. Yeah. And therefore, if they were not coming back, then you probably you'd question is this really working for them? But you're able to actually have a return on investment. I'm able to say, fine, I put my ad out there, I got several clicks in a day that led me to several tickets being sold, and I can actually see the return on investment for every single ad that I put. And if my ad isn't clicked, guess what? I don't pay anything. I only pay when they actually click on my ad. That way there's a powerful ROI there. You only charge when people click on your ad and come to your website. If they don't click, there's no charge. For you, it's free awareness. If they click, they're coming to buy a ticket. So there's a direct ROI between the cost per click as well as how you are able to put money on the platforms. So yes, we are seeing returns, and you're able to track success, unlike the typical platforms.
Okay, so an answer to how we do it, how you pay. Boyer says, there is the Google Ads. Marketers pay direct users to their desired web pages using a pay-per-click system. Google Marketing Platform brings together the best of double-click advertiser products, and Ad Manager helps companies grow ad revenue and protect their brand. Does that work for an answer for you?
So, I mean, he's gone very technical.
Yeah.
I mean, DoubleClick definitely it is one of our platforms, not what we are referring to here. And so I'll probably say he didn't answer the specific question that I actually asked, but he did answer one that I would not have asked for this audience. It's a very technical response,
You're
but
actually
not this
saying that
particular
he
one.
set his own exam and then provided
Exactly.
his own marking scheme.
But he did answer correctly to a different question.
Okay. Okay, so it sounded a bit technical for many others who are thinking, all right, so what are the answers to
No,
this?
it sounded really good.
So the question number one was, what are the three platforms on which you can advertise on Google? And the answer, and someone already got this and they get the hamper, is Google Search, the display network, or the YouTube platform. All right. And then the second question has been, so just tell us, how does each of these work? And then the bonus question is, how do you pay in advertising for this? And you've been talking about this through and through: pay per click, pay per impression, or pay per. Okay. So no correct answers for the other two questions. So what do we do with that? We roll it over to Monday?
So what we can do is, I think, so do your last response, I think he answered one correctly. I think he did he say pay-per-click? Just rewind that answer again.
Pay-per-click, yes.
Okay, yeah. So I think that one, he got one of the two processes correct. So for search, it is pay-per-click. So maybe we can actually reward him for that one of three. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And then what I could probably do is maybe just explain how the other two work, and we can look for an easier question on Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So for display, any more answers coming through, or
No.
should I give the answers?
No.
Okay, great. So for display advertising, it's a cost. So the way it works is we charge on a cost per impression. Impression basically is the number of times your ad shows up on a publisher website. That's one impression. So we pay per 1,000 impressions. So it has to be show up 1,000 times on different publisher platforms, and there's a cost per 1,000 impressions, or CPM is the acronym. On search, it is cost per click, CPC, right? So anytime your ad is clicked, there's a cost per click. On search, on display, a cost per 1,000 impressions, and on YouTube, who wants to guess? Eric, you know this one.
On YouTube?
Yes.
Yes. If your ad is shown and someone does not click skip ad for the first 15 seconds, then okay, from there you pay.
Actually, 30 seconds.
It's 30 seconds.
30 seconds, yes.
Okay.
You're close.
30
yeah,
seconds.
So it's a cost per view.
Cost per view.
Why am I not
Cost
being
per
asked
view.
questions today?
No, I'm about to ask you right now. So if on YouTube CT, my ad is less than 30 seconds, when do I get
didn't tell you
paid?
to take me seriously, for heaven's sake. I was just making conversation. But anyway, continue.
If an ad...
If an ad on YouTube is less than 30 seconds, when am I charged?
Let me put it in layman's terms. You are
Please.
only charged when it is viewed.
Okay. Viewed to what amount? Halfway, a third, full?
Huh? You mean there are such measurements in fractions? Huh? Where was I when you're teaching that particular bit of the lesson? Me, I thought it was just one complete unit. Okay. So tell me these fractions. What is the smallest fraction that is required for you to pay for the viewing?
So cost per view, if my video is 15 seconds, I'll only get charged if they watch the entire 15 seconds. But if they only watch 7 seconds, 7.5 seconds, that's half of the video, I will not get charged. So if my video is less than 30 seconds, I'll only get charged if they watch the entire video, not a fraction of that video.
So the key to this thing is to make it long so that people don't watch it fully, so you don't pay.
No, if you wanted to make it less, if you can have it less short is sweet. Short is sweet.
Make it 28 seconds.
Yeah, then they have to watch 28 seconds for you to get charged.
So someone watches, and then the final second like this, just make it a banner. The content of the ad is 25 seconds. After that, someone skips.
Exactly.
Trying to game the system. Rosemary, thank you very much for speaking to us this week. Next
my
week,
pleasure.
we speak, and then you will be bringing somebody else to also give their testimonial and tell us how their business has been working or how we can take advantage of the platforms that you have.
Absolutely, yes. We have 2 speakers next week.
Sawa. Have a lovely weekend.
And you too. Take care, sweetie. Bye, Ndo.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you very much.
26 minutes to 10. Let's take a break now and see what's happening. Is it raining in other parts of Nairobi that were not raining earlier? And how is the traffic looking like on this Friday? Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice up your life. They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here. Not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those many people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, mazee, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice. Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you
And
used to do?
women are guilty about that.
Is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room will help you stay winning.
All right, so we're still looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at the moment. We will see some rain later in some parts. Showers in some parts already taking place. We'll see highs of 26 today and lows of 17. Partly sunny conditions in Nakuru at 18, highs of 23 and lows of 15. Light rain in Nyeri at 18, also highs of 23 and lows of 13. It's sunny in Eldoret at 20, highs of 24 and lows of 12. Light rain in Kisumu at 24, highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's partly sunny in Kakamega at 23, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Mostly sunny conditions in Mombasa at 29. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 25. Partly sunny at 23 in Malindi, highs of 27 and lows of 16. It's also mostly cloudy in Kampala at 22, highs of 27 and lows of 18. Partly sunny in Dar es Salaam at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 25. And sunny conditions in Johannesburg at 21 at the moment. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 14. Thunderstorms continue in Lagos at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Cloudy conditions in Kinshasa, highs of 31 and lows of 24. Looking at Beijing at 5, it's sunny, highs of 5 and lows of -4, and cloudy conditions at 5 in Paris with highs of 10 and lows of 5. It's getting chillier and chillier in London, -2 at the moment, and foggy conditions in London, highs of 8, and -2 will remain the low. Finally, for now, in New York, it's partly cloudy at 13, highs of 15 and lows of 8.
Spice and everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so Jogger Road traffic is a mess this morning. You see the industrial area issues today, in and out. It looks like Donholm, round, out. Things are going well, not so bad today as well. Coming off of Mombasa Road, it's looking better. However, from Gateway Mall to Cabanas, it's a mess. Even now at 9:30, it's not moving at all. And then it's affecting traffic inbound as well, because we know that roads have been reduced to one lane, especially around the Cabanas area. So turning is a spectator sport. Okay? Getting into the city from the Nyeri roundabout, also from Valley Road, because of the Bagavi Way hold up there, is also a bit of a mess. So it's going to be an interesting Friday. Through it all, talk to us, Spice FM KE, or text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice FM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 90.
The room is Eric Latif Nduoko City Muga.
You know, one of the things that occurs to me, especially now with this BBI, and I was thinking about this seriously, is the practical ways in which I, as a member of a constituency or a ward, can make the life of my representative more fruitful to me and the people around me. Literally and practically. Because the easy part is for me to join the bandwagon of those who have things to say about what is not being done and say it continuously. It doesn't really produce any results. It's just conversations taking place back and forth, back and forth. But more significantly, it occurred to me that if I spent more time in focusing on how to ensure that the things that we talk about and we want done actually get to reach this person, whatever. There are those who say, oh, this person never found. There are places where they are found. And there are places and there are people within that constituency, within that space, who will be able to find this individual. How to ensure that the engagement is not something where you wait for the person to engage you. You take an active. When I say active, I don't mean you call him, send him an SMS or send him on WhatsApp. Most constituencies in this country, if you say your MP is always in town, you will find that there are people from your neck of the woods who are also in town, in that town. So you start by ensuring that, and these chat forums, they are very useful for soliciting money when someone is unwell or there's a funeral. Now imagine if you use that same platform for getting people together so that those who are closest to these leaders can actually go and have this developmental chat with them. I mean, it sounds like there are people who are already doing it. And in many cases, you'll find that even that representative is part of that chat group. So, but if it's a chat group not for raising funds for problems, but specifically for agendas that are important and there's consensus. Now, what am I saying? I am saying that there are people who are probably already doing this. And if they are, they could tell us how that is working out for them. But using modern technology to ensure that all the things we talk about and complain about actually get to be done, so that we are not a threat to the leader. We are someone the leader wants to engage and engage as frequently as possible, not someone they want to avoid. Because every time they think of someone from the constituency, they're thinking someone's going to make a request. Somebody's going to ask me to conduct Harambe. Someone's going to ask me to do this. Please, there's something at the tip of your... Yes, I could see this, the deep breath, then a suspended breath. Okay, carry on.
What stops... because the few examples that we do have of political leaders who take the raw material, input it, and then come up with results that people are happy with, so much so that it makes them put them in for a second term, right? There are few like that, and they're notable. What stops others from replicating the same in the areas or in their corners of leadership? Because it would seem to me that's something that you would want to do, right? Because if you just get it done, now we talked to MP Wambugo, and one of the things that he said to us was, you know what, I'm hearing from my constituents on a daily basis what they need. I'm talking to them. And then we try to make sure that we have done this, right? And then we come back and say, look, you told us that this is what you wanted us to do. You told us that these were your needs. We go, we make the laws, and then we actually try and see as best we can follow up on the implementation of the same. You will find that for no other reason, whether they like him, don't like him, you'll find even people who don't like him, for no other reason aside from the fact that promises which were made based on the information that you gave them, they fulfilled. Because of that, the likelihood of them returning you to that position or even giving you a higher responsibility in another position is very great. I'm confused as to why others would not want to replicate the same thing. It gives you that expediency that we see people aligning themselves to some initiatives for. It would give you that I may be speaking as a realist, but it would give you... That
was Ngonjiri Wambogo of Nyeri Town.
Wait, it would be that...
Invite
well, let me finish now that you can come in.
290 MPs.
It would
They'll
be...
tell you the same thing.
No.
I am in touch with my people.
But
I know what they
but that's
want
what I'm
and
saying.
we've been doing.
But in the few cases where you can see it, why wouldn't it be that you would want to do it as opposed to just saying it? Because look, by virtue of the fact that you're saying what you're saying, the 209, you know the ones who will come and tell you over and over again that we're going to do and they don't do it, right? You know the few that are actually getting it done, and then you say, wow, I wish my county could be like X county where things actually happen, right? So why wouldn't you just do it as opposed to speaking? Why wouldn't you just do it? Because things get better on the long run.
Because of very many other factors. So the measure of success is also now going to be, somebody will come and tell you, you know what, in my area, if you went around what I've done with my CDF. So they'll start off with what I've done with my CDF. We have, the needs were many. And for me to appear not to be favoring one side of the constituency versus another side of the constituency, and the constituency is large or it has very many people, I had to break down what I had so that I can be seen by everybody that I'm doing something. So some will tell you, wow, what have we done? We have gone to all the schools and built new toilet blocks, ablution blocks. Someone else will tell you we have actually gone and built and just bought desks for schools. We have, one of the biggest things that we realized with our schools is that our schools were not fenced. So it would be, it's like a market. So what we did is we have put a fence in this particular school. In the other school, they didn't have trees, so we started a greening project. In the other school, the bigger problem was about water and access to water, so we started some water here and there. But, what you need for water, for example, to drill a borehole in my constituency, for you to get that borehole drill to come all the way here, it will cost us 2.5 million shillings. So what did we do? We can't do 2.5. They will give you all those stories. They will. It's how impactful do the people feel their MP to be? And you see now what the Info Truck Survey was asking.
Very true.
Is how do you judge based on your needs and what is happening?
So even if you go in as an individual, because this is a thing, when you talk about MPs having offices in Nairobi and things like that, and you see the long line of people who would come in and visit them, it's not necessarily what you're doing for your area, but me as an individual, how I think you made me feel. When I come to you and you're able to meet a need of mine at that moment, I would feel that my member of parliament or the legislator that I've gone to see is being impactful because he has had an impact for me at that moment. But if you're going to look at the bigger picture and ask yourself, how impactful is it now when you're adding to the development quotient of the country as a whole? Because all these little parts make part of the big puzzle, right? How impactful is it? And maybe those are some of the questions that should be asked. And those are the guards through which you should be putting any kind of performance. It's against that backdrop that you should be saying this person has performed this way or the other. Not a personal impact, but an impact in terms of the larger development. Because personal impact, if I go and you've helped me with my funeral, I'll say you're a wonderful guy, a wonderful woman. I'm not thinking about the rest, which is what we should be.
Individual.
It's about the individual.
I think I take it back to the citizens' understanding of the role of their member of parliament, of their member of the county assembly, of their governor, of their senator, president, woman rep. One of the reasons why I'm opposed to the idea of having a constituency development fund being managed by MPs. But one of the arguments that has been put forth, and it makes sense, is people judge their MP according to what development the MP has brought. And that's why now they're given that development fund so that then you can go and initiate development projects. Then that is what people are going to say, huyu mtu ametujengea. You see, we didn't have a dormitory here. In this particular school, now we have a girls' dormitory. Now our girls are able to board in the school. That is how people are judging their MP. They look at MP and think MP's role should be development. If we move away from that and actually citizens had a wider understanding of what then the MP's role in policy, in legislation, and all those, and budget making, and all those things, and appropriation, then we'd have a different conversation. You'd go and ask people, what do you think about your MP? And they'd look at the kind of contribution that MP makes in that assembly, and the kind of follow-up that MP makes while in that assembly, the kind of contribution and participation that he makes while in the committees, while in the floor of the House, and what new ideas, what new agenda he comes up with. So when he comes to ask us how we feel, he's coming to ask us because in this area, we are sugarcane farmers, we are rice farmers, because here we are miraa farmers, we are avocado farmers. What is it that we have done in Parliament to ensure there's greater access of our produce, or there's greater access of to the markets of our produce? What is it that I have done to ensure that we have better opportunities for investors from outside our constituency to come and invest here so that we can get job opportunities? That's what we'll be judging them on. But until then, we'll always look at huyu mtu hata matanga haendi. Huyu mtu school fees tulimuomba basari atupatie.
And that's not his job.
Huyu mtu tulimuuliza ajenge borehole hapa ajawahi hata jenga atujai muona.
But that's not his or her job. Yeah. So maybe there's now looking for further education then in terms
Actually,
of...
that is their job. Their
to
job,
come and fund your funeral.
Oh, yes, that is their job. And they encourage that perspective. So irrespective of whatever else we say, that is their job, because here the perception of the voter is that, so that is their reality.
So then maybe the perception of the voter then needs to change. It's not right then. It's the perception of the voter. It doesn't necessarily mean that is their job.
Actually, I'm not even having this discussion at that level. I'm simply saying the reality of the MP's job is determined by
the voter.
Yes, and is also determined by how he presents him or herself. They set up this job description. It's them who set it up. Their expectations historically based, but they help set it up, they help fuel it, they help give it meat.
But the only reason why
their job.
The only reason why they set it up is not necessarily because they wanted to help folks. They set it up because they were looking for a vote.
Good.
Yeah.
So when it
because
comes back to bite them,
essentially they said, okay, somebody has a problem here and I'm trying to make my impact in this particular society. I'm going to go in and make a visit here. There's a wedding, there's a funeral, somebody needs help with a school block here. I'm going to go and give. At some point, it's personal funds, right? They put you into that position, and then then operating on a fallacy that is your job, and it actually isn't.
Look, countries where that is not an issue is because if you are poor, the government looks after you.
Sure.
All right?
The welfare system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here, if you're poor, your relatives look after you, hopefully. Now, your MP is like a bigger relative who should look after you even more because they represent what we call big government. All right? And remember, for the longest time, it was assumed they brought the development that was part of a government plan. It was presented as though that particular MP had brought that development. They had an opportunity to inform the people that actually these things are planned for, and they are implemented when the government has done whatever they need to do to implement it.
Siti, you gave us an example of a gentleman in Western, I think it was Nyanza, who never, not a shilling did he give to help anywhere.
He's actually a governor now.
Now he's a governor, right?
Yes, I'll even mention him by name. A gentleman called Otichilo.
Yeah, Otichilo didn't give
known for not
cent.
giving.
However, people put him in.
Man, they kept voting.
They kept voting him in. Why?
But he had development records.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So now you see something like that. It's not necessary to. If you look at the brother or sister who is next to him saying, "I feel the need to." Give a handout every now and then to see that somebody will vote me in, but you have examples of how and why it is actually not your job. Because this gentleman stood on that. It is not my job to fund your life. It is not my job to help you out. It is my job to actually go and clamor and agitate for legislation to be put in place to make sure that the development agenda is fulfilled. That's my job. However, he chose to trickle that message down to the people. It worked. Because they saw, okay, this guy, we can't manipulate him to give us money, but he's doing his job and we can see the results of the same.
He was a genuine change agent who understood, in my view, and it's not something difficult to understand, that the reason why people come for handout is because they feel you're not going to do anything, so you might as well just dish out money to them. You decline to dish out money, but they can see. They realize, no, let's not bother this man with peanuts.
Let's just wait and see what he's going to do.
What is being done is bigger. And when people seek the views of their constituents, and you can see they implement the views. There was an MP who even did that in my backyard. It's called Engineer Nyamunga. He was known for that. The wards, the councillors, they would sit and agree on how that CDF was going to work. The ward representatives, who were the councillors, came with their plans, and what he did was to just check and see if those plans that had been agreed on were, and those plans represented the needs of that particular ward. There are people who understand this and they do it. So it isn't something that is I was about to say esoteric. No, let me use another word. It isn't far-flung. It isn't something that is not practical. There are people in this country who've been voted in back again and again. You may not even hear of them. There is an MP in Northeastern, the former Northeastern province, called Kainan. That man has been voted back in so many times. You even forget sometimes he's still in parliament.
He's a lifelong MP.
Yes, he is in parliament. You think other people don't want that job? They do. But clearly this gentleman has understood something about his people and the way these things work. So people feel, no, let him just go back. It is okay. People do know what is good for them. That's why you even have governors who are repeat governors. You have senators who are repeat senators. You have MPs who are repeat MPs. Because these are people they've figured out this formula.
So, they could have figured out a formula. Even a conman is able to go back to their people over and over and over again. You could have figured out a formula by knowing exactly how to give the people what they want in terms of words, in terms of promises, in terms of, and playing it out and stuff. There are people up to date that they ask you, okay, so what has so-and-so done since 1983 when they went into parliament, and they have been in positions of leadership for so long? If you look at their backyard, what exactly have they done? There are people who you will not be short of questions that you can ask of certain leaders in this country who have been members of parliament for decades. And if you go back to their constituency and ask, so what has happened? 30 years in office, 30 years as a member of parliament, and risen from a position of member of parliament to a higher position in government, risen to higher senior levels of leadership in the national executive. And then you ask, but water, some of those basics. People are wondering, water. This place has very many snakes, and people actually die. One of the biggest killers of people in this particular area is snake bites. And ask you, what has happened all those years that he was not able to address this, or she was not able to address this? hospital and access to hospital. People ask you that. So it tells you that this person, there's something else that they were able to captivate the people with. Not necessarily their actual needs, but creating a new impression and a new picture that these are your needs.
You see, he understood it. And in all honesty,
Psychology.
you have an extremely valid point, but traitors eventually betray themselves. Because that narrative, yes, will sell, and it will look like it will sell for eternity. It never does. If it lasts long, it just requires a generational change, and people ask a different question. Wait a moment, what is this guy actually? And that's it. You will never, ever, ever see that position ever again. Doesn't matter what you do or how many times you try. Not because, and some people even actually do what they say they're going to do. But you require generational change and people expect something different. My friend, you're gone. Now, somebody who's been there for long, that's a person who's versatile and clearly understands how to shift and change with the times. They
just go with the people.
They've figured. They've got it understood. And usually the reason why it works, even there's no development, the person is wired. If that community likes people who attend funerals with them, attends weddings with them, and
It's
this person
so
does
down
that,
to earth.
exactly, participate, comes to Harambee, that person is going to go back. That question of development.
And every time he comes, he leaves us something.
Yes. And he brings visitors and Harambes are done. The development issues become secondary. And if you raise, you ask, what is the matter with you? But we see him here every day. Those will tell you,
ours.
because he's got the narrative that, development is actually the government's job, not mine. Okay? And people realize, actually, it's not his job.
Yeah, it's not his job.
Yes.
He's in government, but it's not his job.
No, yes. And that worked when MPs could also be ministers. But then when they stopped being ministers and they're just MPs, that narrative, the people whom you will sell it, they'll believe it, and they'll know, I am going to take that matter up with the government. But my job is to help you do A, B, C, D. Now, such a person understands his job. And also, he understands the importance of social capital with his constituents. And they milk it to the
fullest.
Yes, they do.
Coming to the weekend, you told us that you're going to tell us why exactly you chose this proverb of today's.
Yes, I'm going to tell you why I chose it. And I'm going to tie it in with the apology that we have put across. See, we tell other people's stories and we tell everybody's story. Like the sun, we shine everywhere. And we interrogate. Now, one of the things that perhaps doesn't come out clearly is that part of the reason why when we are told stories, we keep asking questions and interrogating is so that we can avoid a situation such as the one which led us to apologize. We want to interrogate. But we also want people to keep telling us their stories. But they should expect that the stories will be interrogated. Now, we don't interrogate the sun. You know why? In this part of the world, we take it for granted that it will shine every morning. It will not burn you, but it's there because you see light. And everyone who's within the boundaries of this particular continent enjoys that reality. Except at night when we all know that the sun doesn't shine, but we have the reflection of the moon, which is a reflection of the sun. Yes. Now, when you bring the discussion to a political field, and Eric, you chimed right in, leaders that are able to convince every possible voter in their constituency that they are with them. Note, I'm not mentioning development, I'm not mentioning projects, I'm not mentioning development. They are with them. That leader goes a long way in convincing the people that he's the person or she's the person who should be voted in to that position because he's one of them.
Bas, ni mtu yetu.
Ni mtu yetu.
Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room this week. Join us again next week, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., Monday to Friday. You'll have a lovely weekend, we hope. Monique will be here to take you home this afternoon, 3 o'clock to 7. And then the adults in the room will be back from 7 to 10. And then you'll have good weekend vibes. It's a weekend thing coming up. A lot of uninterrupted music. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.